Today, I messed up by asking my friend's single mother out on a date because at the end of it all, I literally just got rejected and now I'm worried that I ruined my friendship because right now I seriously just don't know what to do. Welcome back to Am I the Jerk, where yes, you can date someone's single mother. Never mind the fact that you're probably going to ruin your friendship in the process, like holy crap. This first story is a doozy, so strap in for this one. Subscribe if you haven't already, click the bell to turn on notifications, and with that, let's get started. Okay, so my friend's mom has been single for the last few years. She's currently in her mid-40s and I'm in my early 20s, and I've always found her to be really attractive. She carries herself with confidence and has a pretty wicked sense of humor. For most people who don't know her, she can seem pretty cold, detached, and aloof, but once you get to know her, she is one of the nicest and most caring persons out there. Now, I've been strongly infatuated by her for like the last 2 years. Recently, I ran into her in a shopping mall and we had a great conversation. She got both of us coffee and we had a great time just yapping at the cafe. And ever since then, she appeared in my dreams twice. I've never felt like this towards any other woman before, not in the last 22 years of my life. Well, yesterday, I decided to make a move. I slid into her Instagram DM and I told her that her dinner outfit was amazing and looked really good on her. Then I asked her for dinner myself just to catch up further. She then replied initially saying sure, and she would bring her son along too. And honestly, I didn't know how to reply to that. I wanted to make it clear that this was a date and that it would be just for the two of us. I gave it a few hours, then I got a bottle of red wine and I chugged 2 glasses down just to calm my nerves and boost my confidence. Then I texted her telling her that I would love to go on a date with just her. Well, right after I sent that, it was radio silence from her until like 1 hour ago. She then dropped me a text gently declining my offer and telling me that I'm a great kid and basically wishing me all the best with the girls my age. And my God, I'm absolutely crushed. I don't know how my friend will see me from now onwards, and I have no idea if she even told my friend in the first place. What should I do? Bro, that takes some serious guts. Like, let me tell you something. You really decided, hey, my friend's mom is hot. Let me ask her out. Like, what are you thinking, dude? That's crazy. First off, she's like 20 years older than you. And secondly, it's your friend's mom. Like, what in the world was going through your mind? It's totally fine to be like, oh yeah, she's really hot. But to take that a step further and be like, oh, I want to be with her. I want to take her on a date and date her. You know, my friend's mother. Like, what are we doing right now? Like, the odds of this working out were slim to none. And it really makes me question, like, did you really think this would work out? Plus, what do you think your friend would think if he found out, wow, you're dating my mom? Are you kidding me? Like, that's an instant end to the friendship, and that relationship is never gonna work out, dude. And also, like, let's be honest here, her saying like, oh yeah, let's have dinner, I'll bring my son with me. That was the nice way of her saying, I'm not gonna go on a date with you. Like, that is really weird. So I think the fact that you got a gentle letdown is probably the best case scenario, and hopefully this stays like a private endeavor because you don't want to be known as the guy trying to date other people's moms. Like, that is not a good look, and I know for a fact I would not want to have that kind of reputation amongst my group of friends. If you like Am I the Jerk and what we're doing over here, please check out Am I the Genius. It's going to be linked down below in the description. Just click and go ahead and subscribe to them. And also, if you have your own stories you want to submit, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you want to submit your own stories. We're reading them all the time and we're picking out the best ones, so trust me, we would love to hear what you have to say. An entitled customer demands a discount after serving me a terrible attitude, as this weird Karen demanded a discount that was no longer available for an item we were selling, putting me in a really weird situation because she was just so incredibly rude. Here's how it all started. To start things out, I work in retail and I had a woman come a number of weeks late for a sale item, which was obviously no longer on sale. She approached me, snapping her fingers and going, hey, what's the price? So as I was explaining that the item was on sale but is no longer on sale, she cuts me off mid-sentence to stare me down and complain that she drove over an hour to get here. Which sure, it could be true, but many people use this as a tactic to try and get what they want. I explained that there was nothing I could do about the price, but I went ahead and I reached out to a manager to inquire about like a price honor, which is actively like me trying my best to help her out despite her rude behavior. While on the phone with the manager, I asked her how many of the items she wanted, to which she angrily replied, 4 or 5? I mean, what does it matter to you? Well, long story short, we honored the price for her, but she snatched the discount tag from my hand and left with a huff. And of course, she never even said thank you. And sure, I know this is like a mild interaction in comparison to what other people have dealt with in the service industry, but I seriously don't understand what goes through people's brains when they decide to act like this to service workers, especially workers who do their very best for the customers within company policy. As an empath, it sort of ruins my whole shift, as it leaves me feeling like a lesser than, as if I'm just a cog in the machine. I don't have feelings and therefore I'm not worthy worthy of basic respect. Now, I don't plan on staying in my current job for longer than I need to, but props to those who stay in retail for many years because I simply could not do it. Okay, I hate customers like this, and I've dealt with people like this in the past, where it's like, okay, you missed the sale or you missed the deal or whatever's going on, so here I am going out of my way to try and get you your discount that you wanted. But it's like, dude, the second you try to like get details about it, about like, oh, how many of these items do you want? She immediately gets defensive and is like, well, why do you care? What does it matter to you? Maybe 4, maybe 5, like whatever. And it's like, dude, I'm not interrogating you and I'm not challenging you. I'm literally trying to help you out. Like, what is the deal here? And this for me is like a giant red flag in the retail industry, or even in any customer service capacity. The second someone gets angry or like super defensive almost out of nowhere, even just from simple inquiries or like questions about what they want, that is a giant red flag that something else is going on here and they're trying to manipulate the situation. They're trying to pull this card of like, oh my God, I'm a victim here and you're harassing me. When it's like, dude, I'm not doing anything like that. I'm just trying to get your stuff right. Like, chill out. So please, if you're one of these people listening and you're like, man, I'm prone to be really rude to customer service workers, please change your ways, be a better person. These people are just trying to make rent just like you are. They're not your personal slaves, and there's never really a good reason to act like that. My girlfriend hates the fact that I can't help her around the house because I work from home. And it's honestly becoming a point of contention between the two of us because I just don't know how to handle this. Here's what's currently going on. Okay, so I'm working from home for the past couple of years now, and I moved in with my girlfriend close to 6 months ago. And basically, she gets very upset with me that I don't do much in terms of like doing chores around the house, all while I'm working from home. Bear in mind, I'm not always 100% focused on my work. It is overall a pretty chill workplace, and it does not have a strict schedule. The most recent debate that we had over this was to clean our apartment, and she started cleaning in the middle of the day. Now, she didn't bother me, and as I said, it's a pretty laid-back workplace, but even still, she demanded that I should help her, to which I told her that I can't because I'm literally working. After a work session, I decided to take a break, get some air, doom scroll, and then just got back to it after like 20 minutes. And this is basically what really triggered her, because she said that in between these breaks of mine, I could contribute, but I told her that I will help after I finish my workday, to which she got mad at me. The issue now is basically I'm staying at home and she sees me at home not helping out, and apparently this makes me lazy. But if I were to go to like an office or a library or somewhere that she can't see me and do the exact same thing as I do at home, then suddenly she would agree with it. When I'm working from home, I'm usually on the bed or on the couch and sometimes on my desk, but I'm rarely moving. So I would kind of get it from her point of view that I'm doing nothing. Now, some important remarks. I mean, for starters, she is unemployed, but I believe that doesn't mean that she needs to do all the chores. It should be split between us. The thing that bothers me is that I would have gladly done all the chores once I finish my work, or maybe in the weekend. But with that in mind, I will admit that I am a little bit lazy and I have to do these chores on my own timeline. But I wanted to explain to her that even though it does not look like I'm working, my brain still gets drained and I need to take a break and not instead start doing chores around the house. This is a pretty common issue for us, and I'm not sure how to handle it if a next time does happen. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Like, do I really need to stop what I'm doing and start helping around the house while I'm working? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, I can definitely see where you're both coming from, but as someone who also works from home, you absolutely have time during a break to be like, oh sure, let me just sweep real quick, or let me load these dishes into the dishwasher. Like, you definitely could do some work to try and get some stuff done. But I also completely understand where you're coming from, where it's like, dude, I've been working for 4 hours straight. I just need a quick break and then I can get back to it. So I guess it all kind of depends on like how bad the house is. Like, if it's really dirty, then yeah, you got to start like pitching in. But if it is just like general like tidying things up, where it's like, okay, this doesn't really need to be done right now, then I think you're completely justified in being like, dude, I'm working. I can't do that right now. So I don't necessarily think you're the jerk, but I think you would be the jerk if you don't set up some kind of game plan with your girlfriend. Because obviously there's like different expectations from the both of you, and I think you might want to get that in sync before you move any further. Did I overreact by quitting my babysitting job right there on the spot after the mom of this family insulted me for not taking a much lower payment for my services? Because things got really weird really fast, and honestly, I didn't want anything to do with it. And at this point, I just don't know if I made a mistake or not. Here's basically what happened. I'm a 22-year-old female, and I've been babysitting for a family every weekday morning for an hour. I take care of 2 kids, I get them ready, and I drop them off at school using Uber. I charge about $16 an hour, and I've often stayed a bit longer longer without charging extra. Well, recently the mom asked if I could babysit from 7:30 in the morning all the way until 3:30 in the afternoon during the kids' break. I said that I'd be more than happy to, and she asked about the rate, and I said that my rate would stay the same, $16 an hour. She then said that we should talk a flat rate for the entire day instead, and I suggested that since it's about 8 hours, I could do the whole day for maybe about $115. Well, she immediately said that I was taking advantage of the situation and said that she would only pay me $50 for the entire day. When I said that doesn't work for me, she started yelling and said that I was greedy, along with some really harsh personal comments about my appearance that felt completely unnecessary. I then told her that I wouldn't be continuing at all, and I quit right there on the spot, and then I left. But ever since then, she has been constantly texting me saying that I'm unprofessional and that I didn't give them any notice to find someone else, amongst other things. But I told her that I won't be returning ever. So with that in mind, did I overreact by refusing to come back and for quitting right there on the spot over this? Because I seriously just don't know what to do. Okay, the second that lady started making personal attacks against you and making comments about your appearance and all this other crap, that would have been my moment to be like, see ya, I'm not coming back. First off, it is insulting that she's like, wow, you're taking advantage of us, so in return, I'm gonna take advantage of you. $50 or nothing. Dude, no one's gonna work for that. You're literally there for 8 hours. She's literally trying to short you for your time, and that is so inappropriate. Not to mention the personal attacks against you, which came out of left field, because I can imagine you trying to negotiate this and being like, sorry, that just really doesn't work for me. And then suddenly she just jumps on you and says, oh, well, you're ugly and I hate your clothing. You're unprofessional. And it's like, what are we talking about? I'm not greedy. I'm literally trying to do my job. I hate people who act like this, where they jump to some weird conclusion when they don't get what they want, and they decide, yeah, let me burn down any interactions I have with you, all because you said no. What kind of fragile life does this lady have? Good Lord. So no, you're not the jerk and you didn't overreact, because they're literally trying to cut your pay in half instead of paying your full rate. That is unacceptable behavior, and if anyone's being unprofessional, it's this lady for the way she talked to you. My delivery driver literally stole the food that I ordered and drove off. So I decided to get some petty revenge that they literally could not ignore. Here's what I did. Okay, so my partner and I had ordered food one time from DoorDash, and the delivery driver got close enough to where we were, marked the food as delivered, and then drove away. We literally watched it all happen on the delivery map. We waited over half an hour for the food in the first place, so I was already unbelievably hungry. I tried calling the driver, but she kept declining my calls, which made me even more mad. Now, unfortunately for her, I had time that day. So after I contacted support and they confirmed that they would have it reordered and delivered, I decided to get some petty revenge by nonstop calling this girl for an hour straight. I'm talking I called exactly 87 times in a row, back to back. She tried putting her phone on Do Not Disturb, but because I had called twice in a row, it would go through the second time. She tried answering the phone and immediately hanging up, or just let it ring, assuming that she could wait it out. In the end though, she had to turn her phone off, meaning that at least for a little bit, she's not going to be accepting any new orders that she can do through DoorDash. Okay, this is a quick one, but I love this because holy crap, this is my nightmare. I use similar delivery service applications like this, so if someone really did that to me and I'd been waiting for 30 minutes for my food, I probably would want to do the exact same thing. I would call them nonstop. I would make their life a nightmare and let them know that yeah, this was not okay. And yes, I'm going to make you miserable because of what you did. So good for you. I'm totally in favor of this kind of revenge, and I think you did the right thing here. Am I the jerk for emailing my professor to give my group partners a 0 on our midterm after they literally did nothing for our group project at all, waiting until the last minute to essentially put themselves on my hard work? Because right now I feel kinda bad and I just don't know what to do. Here's how it all went down. To start things off, I'm currently in my first year of college and I'm in my midterm season. And for the past 4 weeks, my professor has assigned and reminded us about our midterm project that will be a majority of our grade. When he assigned this 20-minute presentation and project, he gave us the option to create groups or randomly have them created. Now, it's important to note that I'm more introverted than most people, so I didn't really have anybody to group with, so I just let him assign me with whoever was available. Now, when he did, I was thankfully assigned with a guy I've been pretty talkative with and 4 other people in class, and I gotta be honest, I thought it was gonna be a pretty smooth process in figuring out who was gonna do what part of the project, and that we were all going to do the required reading. Also, since he told us 4 weeks before the due date, I assumed that we would all be in the clear. Well, fast forward a week and a half from then, and I start sending a group text message to all of them basically saying I had no problem with taking the majority, plus I had created a link and I needed their emails, while also adding that I found out when we need to present, while also trying to tackle basically who's going to handle what. And I also put in there, hey, there's no rush in deadlines, but if we could all circle back at the end of the week, that would be great. But guess what? I ended up hearing nothing from these people, and on top of that, none of them showed up to class. Fast forward to now on the third week, and I texted the guy privately, who I have been acquainted with, and I guess just overall asking, hey, did you see the text message I sent out? Essentially saying, I hope we can finish it by Friday, but he still didn't respond. Now, I was really upset by this, so I just decided to do the project on my own. I spent approximately 7 hours creating the entire presentation, and researching and reading the required readings, and then an additional 2 hours writing the separate handouts that our professor had asked for. I was so upset that I emailed my professor letting him know that no one was contributing, so I was just gonna do it solo. When I told him this, he said, oh, that's totally fine with him, and that he would send an email to each of them before I went through with going solo. Now, fast forward, and it's the day of the presentation and basically the due date. I then texted the guy I'm acquainted with saying I'm doing this solo, and he starts to spam my phone with apologies, saying that he didn't have access to his email and that he felt bad. And then another guy in my group was rushing me after class, asking for the link and what he could do. And even after I told him I already did everything, he acted surprised that I did, and that I even completed it in the first place. Now, stupidly, I gave them link access, but only to view it, where they couldn't edit it or add anything to it themselves. Also, the guy who rushed me even added his friend to a second group thread, who was apparently in our group so they could just go through it and be able to present it tomorrow morning. I'm so annoyed with myself and them, and my professor already knows that I was struggling with this, so seriously, am I the jerk for emailing my professor again, letting him know that despite me putting their names and being cooperative with them, even though they ghosted me and our assignment for 4 weeks, because I don't want them to have a failing grade, that I don't think it's fair that they are credited for all the work I did. Because right now I feel like I'm going through a moral dilemma and I just don't know what to do. Okay, no, you are not the jerk, bro. This is absolutely unacceptable. These people are trying to poach off of your hard work. They don't deserve to have their name written on that project. Like, they straight up didn't do any of the work. Like, why would they get credit for anything? It doesn't make sense to me. It's honestly really stupid, and if you ask me, it's completely inappropriate. Like, I've done college group projects before, and let me tell you something. I would immediately squeal like a piggy to my professor and be like, oh yeah, they didn't do any work, and now they're trying to put their name on my project. Screw that. You can fail as far as I'm concerned. Because think about it for a second. The only reason they're rushing you and trying to be like, hey, can I get the link? What's going on? Can I see it? Sorry about that. I didn't have my email. My bad. First off, those are all excuses, but also they are literally grasping at straws. They realize that they're about to fail if they don't get this assignment done because they thought they could ride on your coattails. Like, that's unacceptable. So no, you're not the jerk. This is their problem, dude. They're the ones that did not do the work, and that's absolutely on them. So in my opinion, I think you should say screw it and move forward without them, because you do not need to feel bad about them not doing the job, and you definitely don't need them taking your work and passing it off as their own. My boyfriend is making me homeless after he got an apartment behind my back despite us literally looking together for a while now. And now I'm in a situation where I feel completely betrayed and I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's exactly what he did to me. Okay, so my boyfriend and I have been looking for a place to live together for about 3 months because my lease is about to end at the end of the month. We've been looking nonstop and I've been footing all the application costs because he just didn't have a job until the end of last month. So I knew that I was going to have to pay most of the bills, but I was okay with that. I just wanted to support him while he was struggling. Anyways, he gets this job and suddenly he starts acting cold and distant towards me and not really acting like himself, like he's more irritable, and he is not as talkative. On Wednesday, I get a text from him saying a private landlord reached out to him and that we needed to talk. Mind you, I'm in the middle of a 14-hour-long shift, so I didn't see this message until like 1 in the morning. Well, when I get home, he breaks the news to me that he went ahead and signed the lease and that I could stay with him, but I'd still have to look for my own place. And honestly, I felt completely blindsided. He then tells me, oh, it's not a breakup, but we need our own space and that it'll be healthy because we become codependent. Well, naturally, I start freaking out and crying nonstop, saying that I feel abandoned, but he keeps saying, well, if I were abandoning you, then I wouldn't let you crash here while you look for your own place. While also saying, see, this is why we gotta separate, because I can't deal with your emotional outbursts. And honestly, right now, I feel feel used and discarded, and that I'm basically wrong for feeling this way. I feel like we should have talked about this first. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm about to be out of a place and be completely screwed over. And before you ask, the only reason I'm still looking this late in the game is because he kept dragging his feet on applications. So we would end up keep getting denied, which would mean another $50 right down the drain. So seriously, how do I handle this situation? Is this really the beginning of the end? Do I suck it up and stay with him in this new apartment while I continue to look for a permanent place to live? I feel so lost right now that I really just don't know what to do because this really has caught me off guard. Okay, I just want to say that you're telling us that, yeah, my boyfriend didn't break up with me, but in my opinion, this is breakup behavior. This is like the coward's way of saying, I don't want to be with you anymore and I want to go in a different direction because holy crap, this guy's leaving you high and dry for his own apartment. He's literally trying to act like, wow, you're so upset about being homeless. This is why we need to separate. I can't handle you being emotional. But I guarantee you if the shoe was on the other foot, this guy would be freaking out. He'd be losing his mind that you literally left him in the dust. Like, what is going on right now? This guy sucks. And I get it. You like him, you've been together for a while, and you're trying to like figure this out in some way, shape, and form. But it really seems like he's moved on and he's going in a much different direction. And remember, this is after you foot the bill for it, dude. This is unbelievably toxic. And it's just so upsetting that he's trying to turn this against you and be like, yeah, we really need some space. And almost blame you for this happening when like you're doing everything. This guy's without a job. Meanwhile, you're working 14-hour shifts, dude. That's exhausting and unacceptable. So yeah, those feelings of being used and discarded, like that would be more than enough for me to dump this guy and not look back. So hopefully you make the right decision. Like hopefully you could see reason and be like, oh, this guy sucks. I don't need him because he's clearly already made his mind up about you. And that is so unfair. An entitled Karen demands that I share all of my cookies that were meant for my friends with her daughter who literally is walking up right now to take it from me. But instead of giving into this stupid Karen's demands, I decided to get some revenge by making this Karen look incredibly stupid in front of her kid, teaching her a lesson that I don't think she will ever forget anytime soon. Here's what happened. So today was my first time visiting a Crumble Cookies, and I bought 4 huge cookies to try and share with my friends. On my way home, I decided to enjoy the cookie that I had gotten for myself. I was sitting at one of the picnic tables where my condo is, and of course my neighbor's friend shows up out of nowhere, who is, by the way, the entitled parent of this story. And I know they're entitled because trust me, this is not the first time I've encountered her. So I'm looking at my phone and I'm eating my cookie, basically doing as many errands on my phone as I can, when suddenly I hear this entitled parent open her mouth. Look at that, Olivia, there's 3 giant cookies in there. And at this point, the entitled mom is pointing to my box of cookies. Why don't you go ahead and pick out one that you like? As we all know, it's very important to learn how to share with others. And this lady didn't share with you the last time we saw her. Maybe she's learned her lesson. Now, for a bit of backstory, the last time I encountered this woman, I had 2 candy canes because my blood sugar level was low, and I was on my way to a doctor's appointment because I am type 1 diabetic. I obviously did not give the child one of my candy canes because at the time, I needed it as a life-saving medicine. Anyways, I look up and this entitled mother is folding her arms and giving me the most smug look ever. Her kid then comes running up to grab a cookie out of my box, but I'm faster, and I immediately close the cookie box. And when I did this, the little girl seemed really shocked. The mom then lets out the most obnoxious grunt. Oh, come on, you don't need all those cookies. You didn't even share with her the last time you saw her. I'm trying to teach her manners and sharing. We share when we have more than what we need. Well, I look at the little girl, ignoring the mother, and I say to her, today I'm going to teach you another very important lesson. Can you please listen carefully? The cute little girl nods and I say to her, listen, you should never take food from a stranger. You should only take food from people you know, because for all I know, there could be something that you could be allergic to in these cookies, and that might make you very sick. And I don't want to give you something that might make you sick. I mean, you don't want that either, right? The little girl then nods her head and I smile at her. I also say, another thing I learned in life is that sometimes we can't always get what we want. So you might want one of my cookies, but for all you know, I have other people that I'm going to be sharing them with. And then they will be sad that they didn't get a cookie. We should always ask before taking things from someone else. I then tell her I'd be happy to share a piece of my candy with her if she asked me nicely the next time I see her, and if her mom can confirm that there's nothing in it that might make her have an allergic reaction. The little girl then smiles at me, says okay, and then thanks me. Well, after I did that, the look on the entitled mom's face was priceless. I think she probably would have slapped me upside the head, but I was using my wheelchair at the time because I had a flare-up, so thankfully that wouldn't have happened. And I don't know why, but it looks especially bad if you hit somebody using a wheelchair. Even more so if you do it in front of a large group of people, which there are plenty of people outside enjoying the nice weather today. I got enough satisfaction in not only teaching that kid lessons that she needs to learn, but then just by watching the entitled mother storm off and drag her daughter back into one of the other surrounding buildings. And yeah, I wasn't lying. I did get the cookies to share with my brother and friends. Perhaps if they had asked me nicely, I wouldn't have mind sharing the one giant cookie I had bought for myself. But both times I've encountered this entitled mom, she has just told her kid to take something from me without even asking. That poor kid is going to grow up on the wrong path if she thinks she can get away with that kind of stuff. However, if the kid does happen to ask me nicely the next time I see her, I will follow through on my promise. I usually do have low blood sugar candy to spare on me, and I'll give her one of my little bags of Skittles if she really asks for it. But I'm seriously so sick of crazy entitled parents, and I'm glad this woman doesn't live here. I don't want to have to encounter her more than every once in a while, because this lady is the opposite of Mary Poppins, as she is very unpleasant in practically every single way possible. Oh man, I can't imagine being in that scenario because I do not think I would handle that well. Seriously, this entitled Karen walked up and was like, "You're gonna share with my kid whether you like it or not." And it's like, dude, I need this candy to live, not because I'm like giving it out for free. This is not Halloween. Are you kidding me right now? So personally, I think you handled this really well, much better than what I would have done, because this Karen was completely out of line. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled jerk doesn't let us stay at his Airbnb house, even though we booked it weeks in advance. So I decided to get some petty revenge by not only getting a full refund and a free place to sleep, but I also got this guy banned from the app altogether. Here's what happened. So in around 2019, I had a friend coming to visit for St. Patrick's Day. Now, I'm Irish, but he's actually from Hong Kong. Given that I'm local, I said I would take care of booking accommodations, etc. And when I went on, of course, as usual, everything was like half a grand. I mean, welcome to Dublin. And obviously things were maxed out due to it being Paddy's weekend. But I found one spot in Blackrock, which isn't the city center, but it is only a few stops away from the Dublin area rapid transit. And on top of that, this place was going for $68 per night. So I booked it right then and there. Well, the following morning, I got a notification from Airbnb saying the host wanted to up the price to $288, and if I would accept that. I clicked no, and I figured, okay, well, he's already accepted our booking, and I don't have to say yes to this. I then waited a few weeks until the weekend in question, and then it came along. My friend landed in Dublin Airport, we made our way to Blackrock, got to the door, rang the doorbell, and then nothing. There was no car in the driveway, and nobody was home. We hung around for 40 minutes until the host arrived, and he literally wouldn't even look us in the eye. I said, "Hi, we've booked to stay here for this weekend," and he mumbled something about how no one was staying there, and that he was sorry, and then he went inside. Well, with that, I got straight onto Airbnb. They offered us our money back, and I said no. That's not good enough. Everywhere else is half a grand. What are we gonna do with $68? So they offered us double, and I still said no. We need a place to stay. So they booked us into a lovely house elsewhere that was closer to the city center. But you know what? That's not all. I made an official complaint about the host and how he screwed us over. And you know what? They actually booted him off the application. So for trying to fleece a couple of 20-something lads, he had to stop renting his place out entirely. Well, I'm a petty guy, so every couple of months I randomly think about this and I check to see if he's back online yet. And as of May of 2025, he still is not. So overall, I've cost him about 6 years of Airbnb rent and counting, and truly, this is something that you just love to see. Dude, I would be so pissed if I was in the original poster shoes. Imagine booking an Airbnb for the price that, you know, it was advertised for, only to then show up and be told that no, you don't actually have a reservation. Like, I would go bananas. There's no way I would put up with that. So I really love the fact that they got kicked off the app, because truly, if that's the way they're going to conduct their business, then they should not be on Airbnb in the first place. A water main burst in my school, resulting in my classroom filling up with water. But once I started dumping the water out of my room through the window, I not only got in trouble with my supervisor, but I also lost my job as a high school science teacher. Here's how it went down. Okay, so I'm a high school science teacher, and a few years back, a water main burst in my classroom. I saw the drain was clogged, so I sent the majority of the class to the library and grabbed some students I knew could handle themselves from coaching wrestling and football. I had them help carry water to the window in trash cans while I called building and grounds. A few minutes later, a maintenance guy came in and yelled at me, told everyone to leave, and that we should let the water fill the class until the pressure cleared the blockage in the drain. Now, the water pressure did not clear the blockage in the drain, and the whole hallway on both sides flooded, as did the hallway beneath it. Mold eventually grew, and we had to shut down over 40 classrooms for over a year. There wasn't enough classroom space, and we had to split the student body in half and have one group come in at 5 o'clock in the morning to 11, and the other come in at 11 to 5. The repair cost the district over $15 million. All spring sports were canceled for the the year, the next year's fall sports were canceled too, and in a lot of ways, the district never recovered. I also got a load of crap from my supervisor, a VP, and the school principal in the immediate aftermath, and wasn't brought back the next year. I then got offered my old job back when they realized how much damage I was trying to prevent. But at this point, I was already moving on to greener pastures because trust me, I do not need that kind of energy in my life. Okay, dude, whoever's like the ground supervisor for that school is a complete idiot. This guy was really like, oh no, we need to flood everything. The pressure's gonna fix the drain. But it's like, dude, there's literally water in my classroom. Why the heck would I keep that there? Just dump it out the window. Like, are you stupid? Like, that's so ridiculous, the fact that they would freak out on you about that. Not to mention your supervisors and the principal being like, yeah, you've got to go. We've got to fire you now. And then once they realized that you were not the problem, they try to be like, oh yeah, you can come back for your job. Like, if anyone pulled that kind of crap on me, I would never go back. Like, there's no way in the world. Because if they can fire you over something as stupid as this, then trust me, they can absolutely do it again. Am I the jerk for refusing to tip a street musician who did a supposed private performance for me and my date, despite the fact that I never asked for it or wanted it? Because right now, my date is making me feel really guilty and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so last weekend, I went on a 4-day trip to Madrid. On Friday, I met a guy in my hotel, let's call him Matt for the sake of the story, who asked me out for lunch on Saturday, and I said yes, and I was quite excited for it. Matt chose a cute little outdoor cafe and eatery, which really was so perfect. The vibes were there and everything was flowing nicely. Well, that was until a guy with a guitar showed up. I know I'm probably in the minority, but I don't like street performances. I'm on a date or in this historical place because I want to focus on the people I'm with and the setting I'm in. I don't mind if someone's doing their thing too, musically or otherwise, but I don't want to stop and watch them, and I certainly don't want them coming up to me. So anyways, this guy approached and he just started singing in English and improvising a tune about me and my date. He even asked Matt our names so he could work them into the song. Matt seemed to be enjoying the performance, but I was just waiting for it to end and kind of annoyed that we'd been interrupted. Well, after about 5 minutes, the guy finished and then asked for a tip. Now, Matt gave him one, but I politely declined, as honestly, I would have just paid for this not to happen in the first place. Well, the performer started getting upset with me, and then Matt started agreeing with him, saying that we had been given a really cool private experience, and it's only right to tip the guy for it. But you know what? I held my ground. But needless to say, the date was ruined, and we awkwardly rushed through the rest of it. And now, I'm wondering if I was in the wrong. Like, yes, this performer gave us his time and effort into making a custom song, and he wasn't bad. But also, I didn't want or ask for it. I wouldn't be doubting myself, except for Matt, who otherwise seems like a really reasonable guy, and was very much on the side of the street performer. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, dude, this 100% sounds like a scam. I'm gonna put on my tinfoil hat for a second because I seriously think something's going on here. What if, and just hear me out, what if Matt was on the side of the performer because they worked together on this kind of scam? Like seriously, you meet this guy on a 4-day trip to Madrid, you agree to go on a date with this guy, and then you just so happen to end up right where this performer is? Like, come on, this seems like a massive setup altogether. Like, why else would Matt be like, no, you have to give the performer money? Like, come on. It's like, dude, I don't have to do anything. And you know what? Even if Matt isn't in on it and this isn't some kind of like weird conspiracy, a performer walking up to you while you're literally on a date and trying to drag you into their performance is like akin to that one guy on the side of the street who's trying to wash your window and be like, okay, you gotta pay me now. It's like, no, dude, go away. You're literally disturbing me. This is no longer a performance and it's slowly becoming like a police matter. So no, you're not the jerk for refusing to tip this stupid musician, because I'm right there with you. I don't like street performances either, especially if they're gonna be pushy and try to beg you for money in the way that this guy did. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories, because we would love to see what you have to say. Let's get started. Am I the jerk for snapping at my mom's friend after she demanded that I give her a ride home? Here's how it all happened. Okay, to start things out, I went to my parents for a celebration party today. These parties happen several times a year, and a group of family friends gather, not always at my parents' house, but mostly. This has been going on since I was a child, and a main group remains the same. A couple years back, a lady started coming to those parties, not always, but quite often, and I have to say I do not like this lady. She's in her 70s, she's really annoying, inserting herself into every conversation, and yet manages to bring nothing into it. She keeps coming out with nonsense facts, etc., and it gets worse as she drinks. I just genuinely cannot stand her, but I am polite and I'm civil, and I try to ignore her for the sake of peace. Well, today my mom approached me asking if I could maybe give her a ride home, even though she lives half a mile from my parents' house, and this is because plans for her to stay overnight fell through, all due to out-of-town unexpected guests. And you know what? Initially, I said no. As night progressed and people kept getting drunker, I decided to leave. I had a full day, I was tired, and still had half an hour drive home. Plus, my dog was alone most of of the day. Well, my mom then pulled me aside and started guilt-tripping me into taking the lady home, as apparently she mentioned earlier to my mom she will ask me for a ride. My mom was pleading, and I finally said, okay, well, let's see if she asks me. I gathered my things and I went to put them outside, and the lady was out smoking with a couple of people, and she says to me, "Oh, I didn't know that you would be leaving so soon. I'm going with you." I then said to her, "Excuse me, was that a question or a statement?" She then shrugs her shoulders and says, "It's a statement. It is only half a mile. I'm coming with you." So I responded by saying, "Well, it would be great if you could actually ask me, as I'm not a taxi service, nor do I work for you." This lady looked at me and said, "But I am a straightforward person." But at that point, I cut her off and I said, "That's not being straightforward. That is showing a lack of respect. You should ask someone for a favor. Don't tell them they are doing it for you." My mom then chimed in and the lady was laughing, which I took as a nervous laugh for being called out, and the last couple of sentences of the conversation got repeated. She then said to me, "I'm sorry if I offended you." And I said back, "Well, that would be better without the if." My mom then took her side, as she has a tendency to push me towards disrespect and being a doormat for people that she needs or wants around her. I also have to add that I didn't yell, but I was very firm. I have people in my life I've been friends with forever, and even my parents I ask if I can come over or get a ride if they can help, and I would never just tell them that they're going to be doing something for me. I am sure I will be getting the cold shoulder from my mom for weeks to come, but in this case, am I the jerk for snapping at this lady? Because right now, I'm honestly still pretty frustrated. Before we go any further, the original poster actually gave us an update to what happened in this story. Here's what they had to say. First of all, I want to say thank you to everybody who took the time to read and comment. I've been reading Reddit for a while, and I thought, why not ask for an opinion? To answer some questions in the comments, I have no idea how the lady got to the party. I also did not give her a ride in the end, as she never asked for one. Distance did not make a difference. Even if it was 20 miles or 10, I would have done it if only she had asked me and not told me that she was coming along. Even if she turned her statement into a joke and said something like, "Yeah, of course I'm asking," as people can get arrogant when they're drunk, I still would have done it. And by the way, this is not the first situation where this lady dumps her transportation problems literally on everybody else, or even makes some kind of rude or entitled comment. Many of you commented on my mom, and you were completely right. She does have emotional issues and narcissistic traits, and does sacrifice my well-being and my time just to accommodate her friends by using guilt-tripping and manipulation. And trust me, that's an entire story in and of itself, and it took me years to start saying no. For years, I tried talking, asking her for therapy, sending articles, but nothing works. So finally, I focused on myself, and it is a continuous work. However, I no longer see these situations as a favor to her, but rather another attempt to control. I do know she fueled the situation, but in the end, that is another story and another relationship. I've also seen comments of why I hang out with my parents' friends, and I guess I need to clarify because I never said they were only my parents' friends. These are family friends that I've known since childhood or for decades, and this lady is new to the group, and I am in no way close to her or just don't even really know her that well. So I can assure you, I have plenty of my own friends and parties. Now, for those of you saying that I was the jerk or rude, I don't disagree, but I have tried many other ways in these situations, and whether it's talking or keeping the peace, or even just saying no does not work with people like that, but instead sets up for bad treatment in the future. Quick and firm but kind of rude responses seems to have the best results, despite the age, the gender, or whatever else is another reason that might cause them to try and work me over. Now, when it comes to an update from a friend today, someone was coming to pick up one of the friends from the party and actually took this entitled lady back home, but this time she did ask for a ride. So in the end, I would like to think that maybe she got the point and hopefully will change her attitude in the future. Okay, I love this story so much because it feels like a masterclass in how to set boundaries. You're never in the wrong for being like, no, I'm not going to do that, and you're being rude. Because in my opinion, some people just need to be called out. Like seriously, some people just don't know where the line is, and they feel like they can push someone until they get what they want. And that's really messed up. I don't care who you are, like that is not okay. So good for the original poster for setting some clear boundaries and putting this entitled Karen in her place, because her crappy attitude is something that no one should ever have to deal with. Am I the jerk for not helping my girlfriend when she claimed she was being stalked by my exes? Because right now, I'm not sure what to do. Here's what happened. So me and my girlfriend have been in a relationship for about 4 months, but before that, we were best friends for about 4 years. And when I say best friends, I mean it. We would be with each other 24/7, and she would tell me everything that happened to her. During those 4 years, I've been in many relationships, but for this story, only 2 are important. When I was about to turn 21, I was in a relationship with a girl that I will call Shannon for the sake of the story. Shannon and I dated for about a month and a half, but we realized that we have different goals in life, and she did not want to be with someone who has different goals, since she is religious and doesn't want to be in a relationship if it will not end in marriage. I respected her decision, and we broke up on what I thought was good terms. Then, about 2 months later, I got into another another relationship with a different girl who I will call Mia. Mia and I dated for like a month, but we really rushed into it and things just didn't work out. We realized that we were just not that compatible and maybe we could work as friends, but nothing else. We then just broke it off and I didn't really date anyone until this point. When me and my girlfriend got into a relationship, things were great for 3.5 months, but she became really distant lately and I was getting worried. This never happened before, so I asked her, okay, what's up? Are we okay? And she said that we're good, but then like 2 days later, she became distant again. Now, obviously something was going on, so I asked her again and she admitted that she was being stalked. Well, I became really worried and I asked her more about it. I was expecting to hear something like, oh, she was being followed home, but what she said really surprised me. She told me that Shannon and Mia were stalking her. I then asked her how, like what do they do? And she told me that they were liking my stories and looking at them, but they don't even follow me. And honestly, I did not think it was anything serious because how is that stalking? Oh, they looked at your stories. I mean, how will you sleep at night? And that's when I told her I thought it was more serious than that. After I said that, she became really mad. She told me, how do you think it would feel if my exes were looking at your stories and if they always liked them? But seriously, first of all, why are you so mad about them looking at your story? It's not that deep. Okay, they look at your story. And what happens then? Absolutely nothing. And also, the block button is right there. Just hit that one button and then every single problem is finished. Secondly, if I was getting stalked like that by her exes, I really would not care. Oh no, 2 extra guys are looking at my story. Oh god, I'm being stalked. It just seems so internet addicted. Why is a big part of your day looking at who views your story and who likes them? It's just a shallow way of getting attention. I told her to just block them and then there would be no problems. But she does not want to do it because she doesn't want to have beef with random people. And it's like, what does that even mean? I'm so confused right now. Like, okay, you don't want to fight with random people over this, but you decide that it would be amazing if you got mad at your boyfriend about this and told him to roll over dead at the end of the argument. I just don't think it's that big of a deal. She has 2 extra people liking her stories and is making it sound like it's the end of the world. Also, the 2 girls wouldn't do anything to her in real life. One of the girls is religious and the other one is like 45 kilograms and she's maybe 150 centimeters tall. The reason that I think they are stalking her is because they think that me and my girlfriend got into a relationship way sooner, since we were always together and we just now made it public. So they think that I cheated on both of them with my current girlfriend, which isn't true at all. But seriously, how do I go explaining that to them? What does she even want me to do? Go DM my ex to stop looking at my girlfriend's profile, which is public by the way? Like, get a grip. It just seems so unnecessary. Just block her and get it over with. We haven't talked for about 3 days because of this, and I'm starting to worry if I might be the jerk in this situation, because at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, no, your girlfriend is not being stalked, and I don't think there's any problem here. Like, seriously, just block the people and get it over with. I'm 100% on the original poster's side. Yeah, it seems like the exes are trying to like start some kind of drama and be like, oh yeah, we're gonna follow everything that your new girlfriend's doing. But like, seriously, just block them and then it's done. Like, what's the problem here? If you really feel like they're following you and you want me to do something about it, like if I was in the original poster's shoes, I would happily message the exes and be like, look, leave my girlfriend alone. I never cheated on you. There was nothing like that. And I'm happy with my girlfriend, so leave her alone. But to sit there and be like, oh, I'm being stalked by your exes, what do I do? And then not like the answer that you give, in my opinion, is really short-sighted. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I think the way your girlfriend is acting, in my opinion, is a little bit over the top. My entitled brother wants his cut of the inheritance all before my mom passes away, claiming that he deserves it right here and now, and that if he doesn't get it, then he wishes his mom was dead so that he could get it immediately. Here's what happened. Okay, so my grandfather died recently, leaving his 3 kids, namely my mom, my aunt, and my uncle, a huge stack of unorganized inheritances. And to give you an idea of how annoyingly tedious and stressful the whole thing was to deal with, a few of my aunts and uncles are already writing up their own wills, so their children, namely my cousins, don't have to fight over anything like how the 3 of them already are. He was loaded, but with how scattered around his assets were, it was taking a while to get everything in order. So what ended up happening is they're basically starting with whatever homes they can start with. My mother didn't get much at first, but 2 of my older brothers convinced her siblings to give her at least $700,000 in cash and 2 of his old rundown houses, the one we're currently living in and another one nearby, since there was more to be processed anyways, and my mom was losing money faster than she could make. My older brother, who we will call Archie for the sake of the story, is an unemployed, overconfident, narcissistic piece of garbage that nobody likes. He has a kid and his wife is pregnant. The second is his twin, who we will call Ronnie, and he grew up to be a more responsible version of Archie. He recently got married and works a really well-paying job as a professor like our grandfather. Now, I have another brother, but he isn't as important to this story as he's currently at college abroad. Archie was my grandfather's favorite grandson because he was the smartest growing up, but Archie himself only ever spent time with him as a way to get cash for whatever he does all day. When he realized he didn't leave a will, he scrambled to get his hands on anything he could, thus playing lawyer with my mom's siblings and getting her 2 properties and money. Now this is where it gets blurry on my end, since I was never allowed to be a part of family meetings, but from what I know from context clues, Archie somehow convinced my mom to give him one of the houses, namely the one we weren't living in, since apparently, according to him, he was like his grandpa's son, so he deserves something. My mom's siblings were calling BS, and my aunt, who is a lawyer, didn't want him to get anything or involve him in the meetings at all, but he kept weaseling his way in. My mother, just tired from everything at this point, agreed to give him the property as long as he paid for the restoration himself, to which he agreed and everyone was happy. Well, Archie got the house but hired the same contractor my mom hired to work on her house. I have no idea why the contractor agreed to work on both jobs at the same time, despite the obvious lack of manpower, because what ended up happening was Archie would go to his house at 12 o'clock p.m. and watch the guys work, making sure they do their jobs, and then leave at 4 o'clock p.m., and only then would they come and work on my mom's house. With how things were going, the deadline kept drawing closer and closer, and the house was still a leaky, poorly ventilated mess. Ronnie, on the other hand, had a whole business plan with my mom's $700,000, but considering the plan was random stock trading, he had already lost a lot of money, so my mom didn't want to do it. He pushed for months, but each time my mom turned him down. Around 2 weeks later, it turns out that Archie was taking money out of the $700,000 in my mom's bank account, and this was the final straw. She took the house back from him and kicked him out, and thankfully my aunt wasn't done processing the property transfer documents yet, so it was easy for her to just revise the entire thing. Archie came back a few times to demand his rightful share back, and it got so bad to the point that I had to step in and stop the guy from literally physically attacking my mother. He never landed a hit, but my mom was still scared of him. Yesterday, both Ronnie and Archie came over as a final attempt of salvaging what they could after Archie's outbursts, and this is where they came to an agreement. Archie, Ronnie, my brother in college, and me are all getting $60,000. My mom thought it would be easier to just give us all money so no one gets jealous of anyone else, but if anyone wanted any more money, they would have to wait until she kicked the bucket. Archie was still mad about not getting anything, so he demanded that he get a cut of his inheritance right then and there. And at this point, Ronnie just wanted to go home, and I was trying to study for entrance exams, all through his yelling and fake crying to my mother. He also kept using his children as an excuse as to why he needed the money. He kept yelling about how he wished mom would drop dead right there so he'd get his money, and Ronnie just had to drag him out of the house before he could do any real damage. Well, my mom is now cutting Archie out of the will with no chance of him getting back in. I'm still going to be living with her for her safety, and she's looking into getting a security system to keep Archie out. Her bank account is also now secure, and she put me in charge of watching it while she gets her affairs in order, because the way my brothers acted is honestly incredibly disturbing. Yeah, this brother is completely out of line, dude. Like seriously, he said, "Oh yeah, I wish you would drop dead right now so I can get my money." And like at that point, I don't blame her for being like, "Yeah, you're definitely not going to be in this will. Sorry, but you have got to go." So good for her for making that decision, and hopefully he stays away from the family, because this does not sound like a good family member in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you want to submit your own story, because trust me, we would love to read what you have to say. Let's get started. I broke up with my boyfriend all because his family dynamic was incredibly suffocating. And at this point, I'm wondering if I'm the jerk for breaking things off in the way that I did, because right now I'm starting to have second thoughts. Here's how it all went down. Okay, for the sake of the story, my name will be Jenna, and my ex-boyfriend will be called Caden. I'm a 23-year-old female, and my ex-boyfriend is 30 years old. I'm also a longtime reader and a first-time poster. Caden and I met last July and fell hard and fast for each other. Things moved quickly. After Christmas, I moved in with him kind of spontaneously because it just felt right at the time, but in hindsight, that was when things started to go wrong. About a week after the holidays, I found out that he had a long and complicated history with someone who I will call Rachel. They had briefly dated, transitioned into a friends with benefits situation for about a year, and then remained just friends for another 4 years. Caden downplayed the situation to me, but I later discovered that while we were together, he was texting her frequently. We're talking multiple times a week and asking to hang out a few times a month. He never told her about me, and he lied to me once about seeing her, and that's when the trust started to break down. At the same time, I started getting a closer look at his family dynamic. At first, it seemed sweet. They were always texting, calling, and checking in, but soon it felt suffocating. I would glance over, and he was constantly messaging or on the phone with a family member, and I mean every single day. For a bit of context, I left home at 16 due to an awful and unstable household, household, and I've been fully independent ever since then, working hard to support myself. I have complex PTSD and no contact with my family. So seeing someone so deeply enmeshed with his, to the point that his apartment, job, and car insurance were all set up through his family, was completely overwhelming. It felt like he would never stand a chance on his own, while I had been forced to do so for years. From January through March, we fought constantly about his family's involvement in our lives. I tried to express how the nonstop contact made me feel like I came second, that their opinions and emotions influenced him more than my own did. And often, after spending time with them, his tone would change like someone had rewritten our arguments for him. Well, in late March, we took a trip to Miami. It was supposed to be a break, but his family kept blowing up his phone. And trust me, I get it. We were in another country, but we were only in Florida. And he's a grown man. But even still, the trip only deepened the tension. When we returned, I asked for what I thought was a fair compromise, namely just a few months of space from his family to focus on us. Well, we wrote the message together and then he sent it. Within 4 hours, chaos absolutely erupted. His family accused me of taking him away and said that it was completely unfair. His mom and sister were incredibly emotional, and the next day he visited his mom, who said that she didn't support our relationship because, in her words, family comes before everything. Then, without telling me, he went to his sister's place, something we agreed he wouldn't do because it made me feel unsafe. When I confronted him, we had a huge argument. He asked me to call his mom to smooth things over, and I'd never even met her in person, and we'd only had a few FaceTime calls, if that. On the phone, she was cold, rude, and dismissive. She told me my traumatic past didn't matter, and that the only thing that counts is the future. She compared our past like it was some kind of contest, and called me crazy and bizarre. And Kaden was there the whole time and just said nothing. I left that night and I stayed with a friend, and then in an Airbnb for a week. It was one of the darkest weeks of my life. Eventually, I moved back in temporarily until I could get into my new apartment. He kept promising things would change, that he'd respect the boundaries, but they didn't. The phone calls, the text messages, the emotional weight of being with someone who wouldn't put our relationship first. It was all still there. I cried, I threw up from the stress, and I felt like a shell of myself. 2 days ago, I told him I couldn't do it anymore. I told him I wasn't angry, but I was just exhausted. We tried everything, but he still wouldn't step back from his family, even though I wasn't asking him to cut them off. Just give us space to build something on our own. Well, he told me he couldn't give me that, and so I left. And now I'm wondering if I made a mistake by ending it all. Now, to give you an idea about the frequency of communication, let me clarify a few things. His family would reach out to him almost every single day, multiple text messages from his dad alone, and then about 3 to 4 other family members would text or call several times a day or week. They all live around 20 minutes away, so it was constant, especially when it came to him being available to talk or visit. So am I the jerk for ending this relationship in the way that I did? Because right now I'm still incredibly frustrated. Okay, I don't blame you for a second for stepping away from this relationship because it does not sound like you two are compatible. Like seriously, it sounds like you guys have totally different expectations about like family and stuff like that. And especially from both sides of this, it seems like either one changing anything is just gonna be seen as like a huge, massive attack against the other person. Because I honestly see both sides of this. I don't think it's unusual for family to call and check in on each other, but also I don't think it's a bad thing to be like, okay, let's have some distance and figure our lives out. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem like either of you are willing to budge in any kind of way or find some kind of like middle ground. So in that regard, I don't think you're the jerk because your feelings are completely valid here. You deserve to be in a relationship that really makes sense to you, and in my opinion, this one just doesn't fit the bill. Am I the jerk for not acknowledging my half-sibling after my dad went through the messiest divorce I could possibly ever imagine? Here's what happened. So I come from a wealthy family, and both my parents worked their butts off to get where they are. Now my father on one hand is older than my mom by about 10 years, so his business is bigger. I've also known that my father has cheated on my mom several times over the course of their marriage. My mom comes from a poor divorced family, so she didn't want to divorce because she knows how painful it is. Eventually, my father leaves her in 2019 for a woman about 23 years younger than him. Keep in mind that I know he's been having an affair with her since 2015. I also confronted him in 2015 about this as a 13-year-old kid, which he then responded by giving me a slap in the face and telling me that if I tell this to mom, I will break the family. Fast forward to the divorce, and my dad messed with my mom in every possible way, both financially and emotionally. But luckily by now, she has recovered and her business is starting to thrive again. He still disputes almost every single claim my mom makes regarding costs of university, etc., despite making a net profit of over $1 million last year. In various court cases, he describes us as spoiled brats, even though my sister and I both work every single weekend to save up and because we like our student jobs. This January, he and his now wife, the one from 2015, welcomed a baby of their own, but I explicitly told him that me and my sister will and can never accept that baby or his wife, especially after the messy divorce, the court cases, and me being mistreated, and a lot of other crap, which trust me is way too much to get into. It's his wife and his daughter, and they're not my stepmom or my half-sister. I told them that I wish them good health, but I only want a relationship with my dad and no one else. But now I'm hearing that they complain to all of our common friends that my sister and I are selfish, entitled, spoiled brats, and that we should fully accept his new family. They also still talk crap about my mom every day, and this is practically to my dad's entire side of the family, which is also the reason I cut ties with most of them as well. So I really need to know if I'm the jerk here, because right now I don't know what to do. Dude, this is so messy. Like, your dad sucks. He sounds like one of those evil people who would just mess with your mom just for the sake of doing it, which all stems from a decision that he made. Like, he's the one that cheated, not the other way around. So the fact that he's demonizing you and your sister just because you want nothing to do with his new family, like, I don't blame you for a second. That would be way too painful to handle, especially after all the crap that he pulled during the divorce. So no, you're not the jerk, and honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would probably do the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for not going to my boyfriend's family's get-together after they refused to go to mine that I had planned for literally 4 months? Because right now I'm feeling very petty and I'm not sure if I'm making a mistake. Here's what's going on. Okay, to start things out, I'm not sure if I should be feeling this annoyed over the situation or not, but I am not happy. So last week, it was my boyfriend's birthday. We've been together for almost 7 years, and I love him dearly. 4 months ago, I had an idea to have a surprise weekend away in a place called Chester, which is for reference in the United Kingdom. Now, I invited everyone, my family, his family, and our friends too. The plan was that I'd have a secret day off work, pack up both of our clothing and what we would need for a couple nights away from home, as it is almost a 4-hour drive away, so it's not going to be that easy to come back if we need to, and just simply pick him up from work and then travel down to Chester. We would spend the night, just us, go for a nice dinner, maybe an evening activity, and then the next morning go to the zoo, where we would meet everyone there, and whoever wanted to stay the night, they could do that, and anyone who didn't, they could go home. It was no big deal. I spent weeks trying to organize hotels and transport for people who wanted to go, and for people on a budget. Anyways, it got to 2 days before we were all going, and all of his family said they couldn't go. Bearing in mind, most of them lived way closer than we did, and their reasons were that it was too far, or that they couldn't get the day off of work, or that traveling will be difficult, which honestly is something I completely understand. However, I gave 4 months notice, which I think is a reasonable amount of time to sort things out to be there. My family even offered to help with money, traveling, and other expenses if needed, so they could be there. So I think it's absolutely shocking that not one of them showed, yet all of my family and our friends made it. Some of them even traveled 8 hours in the car to show up, spend the day with us, and then traveled home because they couldn't stay. So am I being unreasonable, or is this just a crappy thing to do? Even more shocking, the day of his birth, I received a text message saying that maybe we could all do something in a few weeks' time, you know, where it's cheaper and easier for people to get to. And believe it or not, they suggested something where they lived. And honestly, I'm raging right now. So just because I'm feeling a bit petty, I'm not gonna go to that. So truly, am I the jerk for not going to their trip after they refused to go to mine? Because right now, I'm still incredibly upset. No, I don't think you're being a jerk at all. Why would no one show up? Like, not a single person. You gave them like a 4 months notice to have some kind of like arrival or appearance. And I'm pretty sure it was well articulated that, yeah, guess what? I'm gonna be having a big event with both families. You really should figure things out and be there. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And as someone who comes from America, anytime anybody from the United Kingdom's like, oh, it's too far away, I can't do it, I just have to sit there and laugh because, my God, a few hours in the car is nothing. Like, dude, there's no excuse. So in my opinion, it all comes down to the fact they just didn't want to go. They didn't want to spend the time to go up there and visit with you or anybody else, and that really sucks. So no, you are definitely not the jerk for not showing up to their thing, because they literally could not bother even showing up for what you had planned. Am I the jerk for wanting to leave my parents' house as soon as I turn 18 years old? Because right now, with my current living situation, I feel completely miserable and I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, as the eldest daughter, I want to start off by saying that I had to live for other people. Responsibilities have always been on me. Ever since my parents divorced, I've been forced to be the therapist for all of them, and I had to endure the constant blaming from both sides on the smallest things. If I expressed my feelings or even cried, I would get shamed for it, and then I'm expected to hold my mom and assure her that everything's okay, when I myself have never been comforted before. All my life, if I showed emotion, they would ignore me, or look at me like I'm disgusting, like I've done something wrong, when in reality, all I asked for was to be loved. Now, when my mom asks me why I'm cold and don't show emotions, I tell her that she doesn't care for me when I cry, or when I talk to her, but then suddenly I'm the one who mistreats everybody, and then she bursts out screaming like I did something wrong to her or something like that, and suddenly everything everything is about her. Sometimes she even ignores me when I tell her that I need to say something important to her, and instead she just keeps playing on her phone. My mom has always been this way, where she only loves or treats me like a person when she's happy or in the mood to be a mother. My dad also wasn't even there for me either. He mistreated my mom verbally and physically, and also molded us to only care about other people's opinions and follow his commands on everything. And you know what? He's never been there for me. After the divorce, he began his crazy behavior where he would be following us and mom just to spread bad rumors about my mom in the streets and in the neighborhoods. Every time we leave the house, we will find eyes following us everywhere, looking at us in the most disgusting way. Not only that, but he also kept breaking into the house even though they were divorced. He even broke the handle to my mom's bedroom and took money and gold. And if that's not bad enough, he threw the remote to the air conditioning at her face and hit her directly in the forehead. And for reference, my mom has diabetes, and that can cause her to go into a coma anytime. I was seriously devastated. And if that's not bad enough, I heard him talk to her about how if I didn't live with him, then I'm not his daughter anymore. My sisters always loved him, but even then, he literally threw her on the side like she's trash, and he just doesn't care about her. Ever since the divorce, the house has always been dirty because my mom was severely sick and could only leave to work and come back to sleep from severe exhaustion. So I had to clean the house and cook every day for my siblings, just to then get called names from them, and my mom shaming me if I was too tired to do anything. I've had to clean, study, be the therapist for the whole house, and be the perfect daughter just for my mom to tell me, "You're just like your dad. You look like him and you act like him." And that broke me. I realized nobody cared for me anymore. I've lost all my friends. I've lost my happiness. I get massive mood swings so bad that depression lasts for days nonstop. And these days, I'm supposed to push myself to the limit and take care of everyone who treats me badly, because according to them, it's my responsibility because I'm the oldest. But you know what? I'm tired. I'm really tired. And I have in the past had very dark thoughts. And I now feel like I'm stuck in a loop that just never ends. But it's like, why do I have to experience all of this? And why am I not like the other teenage girls that only have to worry about their nails or their boyfriends? I really just hate everything in my life right now. When I bring up that I'm leaving the house as soon as I get a job, my mom gets all sad and angry. She then says that I'll leave her in a nursing home. And it's like, what? All because I wanted my own room and not to be stuck in a small, suffocating room with my two siblings? I've already lost so many friends that I'm all alone in school, and now my immature dad is bombarding me every day and verbally mistreating me just to get my mom to get back with him. So honestly, with all things considered, would I be the jerk if I did move out of my parents' house as soon as I turned 18? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated and I don't know what to do. Oh man, first off, I want to say to the original poster, I am so sorry that you're having so many problems in your life right now, especially at such an early age. Like, you don't deserve this, man, because you deserve way better than what your parents are giving you. And just to try and like clear things out for you, no, you absolutely do not have to be the only person in the house cleaning and doing everything around there. It sounds like your mom and dad failed in almost every single way possible, and it's not fair for you because you literally don't deserve this. You shouldn't have to be the therapist of the entire house. You shouldn't have to be the only person cooking for your younger siblings, and you definitely should not have to be the only person cleaning. And it's so classic that your mom's trying to be like, oh, you're gonna put me in a nursing home when I'm old, aren't you? Because in the back of my head, I'm thinking like, yeah, if you keep acting like this, absolutely. In fact, you'll have to pay for it yourself. Like, dude, what are you doing? So no, if you did decide to move out at 18, you would not be the jerk. You really do deserve to have your own life where you can make your own decisions free from the scrutiny of everybody around you. And the fact that your mom wants you to stick around is just a big manipulation play. She wants you to stick around because you've taken on the role as the mother of the house. And if you're not there to do everything for her, then suddenly she's got to do her job. And the same goes for your dad. Like, they're both cut from the same cloth. Because in my opinion, you deserve the best in this world. And hopefully things get much better for you sooner than later. My entitled neighbors sent their relatives to my house to try and use my pool without my consent, resulting in all of us going to court, with my neighbor and their family being guilty of a second-degree trespassing charge. Here's what happened. Okay, so the front of my driveway has a sign that reads private property, no trespassing as you pull into the driveway. I have a fence up around my pool to keep out unwanted animals and intruders, with the only way in being a key that you need to unlock the gate. I have security cameras on certain places of the house pointing to the pool. So with that information out of the way, last summer while I was away, my phone alerted me. It basically said that my security cameras had caught something, and so I checked to see the live footage, and it was 3 teenagers that were in their early teens and 1 adult trying to climb the fence to my pool. I have a tarp over my pool at all times, which can only be removed by a switch in my house. And you would think that they would see the tarp and then just leave. Well, I immediately called the police and they told me that they would take care of it. The 4 didn't even attempt to leave, and they just kept trying to climb the fence fence, and I then watched as the 4 of them were arrested. The day I get home, my neighbor, who must have been watching from my car, storms over and starts screaming at me. "My sister and her kids are gonna have a criminal record now because of you." But I looked at them and I said, "Oh, so that's who my cameras detected. You should know my sign in front of my house says private property and no trespassing." She then says that she'll see me in court when their court date comes up. The sister of the neighbor pleaded in court it was a hot summer day and they wanted to cool down, so her sister insisted that they go use my pool, but to ignore the sign that said private property because her sister and I are good friends. But my neighbor and I are not good friends. I explained to the judge that I did not give consent for my neighbor to use my pool while I was gone. The judge saw all the evidence needed, especially the sign in my driveway saying no trespassing, and found the neighbor and her sister guilty of second-degree trespassing, which in my state carries the punishment of a $200 fine and 20 days in jail. The judge found the 2 nephews and niece guilty as well. My lawyers also requested a restraining order, which was also granted. The teen lawyer tried to explain that the teens didn't know about the sign in my driveway, but the judge dismissed that because they willingly listened to their mother and aunt in believing that it was okay to trespass, which is most definitely not my problem. Okay, I love this so much because my God, that is so dangerous. Like, you have so many things set up to be like, hey, don't go on my property while I'm not there. This is private property, there's a locked door, and I have my pool covered. Literally, there are so many things that show that, hey, this is not something you want to mess with. You shouldn't be here and this is not okay. And the fact that your neighbor literally was like, oh, it's okay, we're friends. It's like, dude, no, we're not. If you were my friend, you would not be telling them to break the law and trespass onto my property. So good for you for shutting this down because honestly, this could have been so much worse if somebody got hurt. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for asking my husband to go low contact with his college ex after he literally called me by her name twice in a row? Here's what's going on. I'm a 27-year-old female and I've been married to my husband for almost a year. We had known each other and were good friends for a year and a half before finally tying the knot. We decided to start seeing each other after knowing each other for almost a year. During our friendship and our relationship, even during the short span that we had been married, I knew about his past and I was always open about mine. I am someone who tries her absolute best in a relationship and gives a guy plenty of chances, but once it's done, and I never look back. But my husband had experiences in the past when he either bounced back to one of his exes for a short booty call situation or just a flirtationship. Now, I had no reason to doubt my husband's loyalty. However, my trust in him dwindled a bit when he was entertaining his mother-in-law about complaints about me in the beginning of our marriage. She would rant about me, said things like, "I'm not happy with your marriage," and all this other stuff, and he wouldn't stand up for me, at least in the very beginning. However, we worked through it and moved past it. It caused me a lot of pain that he would do that, but I set my boundary in that respect, and he learned not to toe his mother-in-law's line where I was concerned. Fast forward to a few months in, and my husband would bring up his ex every time he watched his favorite sport because his ex's father worked for our country's sports team. So he would bring up her father a lot. All the times he hung out with the players, all the trips that he went with them, all the autographed stuff that he has, their beautiful house, their successful business, etc. He would always say, "Oh, Lily's father's this and Lily's father's that." And for the sake of the story, the name of the ex is gonna be Lily. As he is super passionate about that sport, I would get slightly bothered to hear her name so many times every time he passionately talked about that sport, which by the way was a lot. Well, I eventually let him know. He defended himself first that he admired her father and not her, but later understood and just kind of stopped talking about him. Well, fast forward to a month later, and she invited us to a game of that sport in premium seats, which she could arrange because of her father's position. Well, fast forward and we were in the car. It was my husband, his ex, me, and another friend of the ex. We were on the way to the stadium where we were set to meet their other friends when my husband accidentally calls me by his ex's name. I didn't acknowledge it then, even though it was quite embarrassing in that moment because a silence followed when he said that. And you know what? The other people in the car noticed as well, but I just brushed by it really quickly. A few weeks later, I calmly told him that what he did really bothered me. He defended himself again, saying that it was a mistake and that our names are similar, and he has a lot of trauma from college when he was dating her, when he would say her name a lot while trying to calm her down during fights. But I could not accept that explanation, and I got really angry when he kept repeating it. So we ended up fighting, we made up, and then later on, when we were still talking about the same topic calmly, he calls me by her name again. I then told him that he needs to go low contact with her at least until he's officially over the trauma from their relationship. That way he can stop accidentally calling me by her name. He understood and said that he'd honor my wishes until I get comfortable with the idea of having her as his friend. They do have common friends, and and had plans to play a sport together with friends and me last weekend, but she canceled last minute because of her other commitments. My husband calls her again today to make similar plans with the same group of friends before he called the other friends. He brought it up with me casually, but started getting confused when I asked for details. First he said that she called him and tried to make the plan, and later he admitted that he was the one who called her. He also tried to tell me that he called her only to coordinate because their other friend asked him to make the plan, and later he admitted to calling her before he texted the other friend about the plan. He called her on his own, no provocation, but he says it doesn't matter much because it was only about the sport, as if I'm the one overreacting. He says he didn't talk to her for over a month because I asked him not to. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation for trying to set some kind of boundary? Because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, it really is super inappropriate that your husband can call you by his ex's name multiple times. And it's like, dude, why are you still friends with your ex? Like, that's so weird. Why not kick that to the curb? And no, that sport is not a good enough reason to be like, yeah, let's still be friends. So no, you're not the jerk for trying to draw a line in the sand, because your husband's behavior, in my opinion, is completely inappropriate. My job forced me to be a part of a meeting group that I really did not want to be a part of. So I maliciously complied and showed up, but instead of actually going along with what they were doing, I decided to be the biggest nuisance on planet Earth, pointing out every single problem I could possibly spot and frustrating these people to no end, resulting in me getting kicked out of this group. Here's what happened. So when I was working IT at the college, it had been decided that the world would be a better place if two of our campuses were merged into one. They were only a mile apart and the new site was 3 miles away, so there wasn't a big location issue. Sure, some people had a harder commute, but some got an easier commute. It's kind of equitable when you think about it. To make the new build a rousing success, there would be consultations and people would be consulted and everyone would be listened to. Yeah, you know that didn't happen without me telling you, don't you? Each department was to send a representative to the new build consultation group, and despite my best efforts to stay quiet or even absent every time the subject of a mandatory volunteer came up, I basically got volunteered to go and do this. So me and all of my mid-level position glory was to represent IT. So okay, fine. I really didn't want to take part in a farce of a consultation, so all the mistakes could be labeled as unforeseeable. But if you're going to send a professional fault finder to a consultation, I hope you have a full load of ink in that pen, because trust me, you're gonna need it. The meeting comprised of 5 people from different departments, as well as Susan, who worked in facilities, who had been given the job of managing the new builds. No one seemed to think that there was a significant difference between booking rooms for training courses, making sure coffee and lunch breaks were catered, and making a multi-million-dollar building come into existence, as well as transfer hundreds of staff and thousands of students over to it. After introductions, top of the agenda was parking. And to be fair, I think it was smart to start with the contentious issue. Parking was already a problem, and the rumor was that there would be less parking at the new site. And this would be solved apparently by not having any student parking, ignoring the inconvenience this would cause, and questions over the public transport suitability. There was already not enough staff parking, so how does screwing over another group help us out? After a bit of vague details about somehow rewarding car sharing, we were furnished with the magnum opus of technology that would solve all of our issues: a gate with number plate recognition. This would stop all those pesky outsiders from coming over here and stealing all our spots, which is something that had never been an issue. Now, I had been quiet until this point as I thought it all had been a bit daft, and I was formulating a plan out of the job anyways, so these issues were unlikely to affect me much. But now that we had hit on some technology, I felt the need to chime in. I let the others ask their questions to understand how a plate number recognition gate works. For those not aware, it's a barrier with a camera. When you pull up, it reads the number plate on the front of your car, and for reference, all cars have a very standardized white front number plate in the United Kingdom. It translates that picture into numbers and letters, looks it up in the database, and if it finds a match, it opens the barrier. Once everybody understood the technology, I opened up with a problem in their happy path only thinking. I said to them, okay, so Jan and I, pointing my thumb at the unsuspecting woman sitting next to me, car share every day and she drives. But today her car is broken, so we take mine. What happens when we get to the gate? Susan looks at me and says, what do you mean? I say to her, well, my number plate won't be in the system, so what happens? Susan responds by saying, well, it could be even if you don't drive normally. I say to her, well, that assumes a level of preparation. What if it's an emergency? Susan then says, well, there will be a call button. You can speak to someone to let you in. Now, I ignored the likelihood of that call system being managed and instead focused on the loophole that she had just opened. I say to her, so I'll just be led into this carefully controlled car park with limited spaces based on my say-so? Susan stammers for a bit, and then I say, and you said I could have my number plate in the system, right? Susan said yes, please to not be talking about the space issue again. But I looked at her and I said, okay, which one? Susan looked at me and said, which what? But I responded by saying, which number plate? I have 2. And when Susan clarified that yes, I do, she asked me why, and I said, because it's illegal to use the same number plate on different vehicles. Susan then said, "Oh, right." I then responded by saying, "So can the system cope with more than one number plate?" And all Susan said was, "Well, I'll check on that." And while she took a note about the multiple vehicle issue, I reloaded with another problem. I said to her, "Okay, great. What if my other vehicle is a motorbike?" Susan then said, "Well, I don't think that will be a problem." But I explained that I'm guessing the camera's on the gate and looking at the front. Susan said, "Well, yes." And I obviously had to clarify, so I said, "Well, motorbikes don't have front number plates. How will it read it and let me in?" Susan then said, "I'll check." And then she wrote another note and brought the meeting to an end. Well, a few weeks later, I heard from someone that there was going to be another new build consultation group meeting, but this time I had not been invited. So I'm honestly so glad I got out of that stupid meeting because trust me, I didn't want to be there in the first place. Oh my gosh, I love this so much because you literally pointed out all the problems in their system that they clearly were not ready for. So good for you for getting out of this meeting because it does sound incredibly boring and I would not want to do that myself. My entitled neighbor demands that I stop using my own Wi-Fi because according to her, it's distracting and destroying her plants. And once I heard that, I've honestly never laughed harder in my life. Here's how it went down. So I live in a townhouse complex with paper-thin walls and a whole bunch of colorful personalities. One of them is my neighbor, a woman in her late 50s, who wears tie-dye shirts every day, insists that she has a telepathic connection with crystals, and once told me that my aura was too digital. I'm usually sitting out front on my phone with my computer relaxing, and I suppose that's why she feels I'm too digital, but I don't really know. But honestly, her latest stunt truly took the cake. Last week, she knocked on my door holding a small potted plant in one hand and a printout of what looked like a hand-drawn diagram of a Wi-Fi signal in the other, and she told me that we needed to talk about my router. And honestly, I was so confused. She then explained that my Wi-Fi was disrupting the vibrational energy of her succulents. She then pointed to the drawing, which honestly looked like a sad jellyfish, and said the signal beamed directly through our shared wall and bombarded her plants non-stop. According to her, the plants were spiritually wilting because they thought the Wi-Fi was sunlight, but it wasn't. And the best part about it is that her plants were in a dark hallway with no natural light. She claimed they had been fine until I got a new modem and then gave me two options. Either turn off my Wi-Fi every night between 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the morning, which is apparently the plant's rest hours, or let her share my Wi-Fi and move the router into her unit so she could regulate the signal properly. I laughed because I thought she was joking, but apparently she wasn't. She then stormed off as I laughed at her, and I'm still currently waiting to see what might come out of this. Oh my god, that is crazy. Like, that's like grade A crazy. She literally tried to use her weird vibrational energies to try and get your Wi-Fi password. And this, by the way, has nothing to do with the plants. She just wants Wi-Fi. You should either turn it off or give it to me and I'll monitor it. It's like, dude, I don't know what other plants you've been consuming, if you know what I mean, but you might want to cut loose of that because it's clearly clouding your third eye or whatever. Like, dude, this lady's insane. So yeah, I love the fact that you laughed at her because this lady deserves to be laughed at. Am I overreacting to my wife's affair as she's been openly cheating on me with another man? Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I feel like a toddler throwing a temper tantrum, asking my wife why over and over again. Why would you do this to me, to us, to our family? Well, apparently my wife didn't feel loved. She said I didn't do much. She said she cheated because she changed more diapers than I did. She cheated because she cooked more than I did. She cheated because she cleaned up more than I did, and she woke up more nights to tend to our babies than I did. Not to mention walk the dogs way more than I did. My wife was a stay-at-home mom for about a year, and now she works part-time. I try my best. I work 48 hours a week. It's really hard to do everything at home when you work that much outside of the house compared to my wife's 4 hours a day at work. And for reference, we have a 2-year-old and an 8-month-old. I found out most of this information from going through my wife's phone. My wife ended up cheating on me with a man that she met at a children's group. She cheated on me with a single dad. She was immediately attracted to him because he was the only dad at the event. I mean, his wife passed away, and my wife was drawn to him for being a devoted dad. He had the time to go to these events and be a dad and work at the same time because he has involved grandparents that help out a lot. My wife would go over to his house with our kids, and I'm sure everyone's gonna ask why didn't I have my kids say anything to me? But what are they gonna do? One's 8 months old and the other one's 2. The 2-year-old has a speech delay and he can only say 2 words. My kids are too small to understand what's going on. They don't automatically think I see a different man and that means mommy is cheating. They don't understand any of that, and their memories don't work like that either. I'm sure my wife isn't doing anything nasty with this guy in front of my kids, and she keeps it friendly when my wife is around the kids in front of this man, but this is how my wife and this guy are spending so much time together too. She also lies when she says she's going somewhere and leaves the kids with me and goes out with her boyfriend. They text all the time, and that's really what made me think that something is going on, because she was just on her phone way too much. My wife says that she's not sorry for cheating on me, and I deserved it by being such an absent
absentee father. She says that my 2-year-old prefers mom and never goes to dad, and that's because my 2-year-old doesn't know me like that. And how the kids only know their mother, and how I'm just gonna get stripped away all my parental rights when she leaves me for her boyfriend, since that's the kind of state we live in too. She told me that she fell in love with the other man, and that's what hurts the most out of all of this. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh man, there's no good excuse for your wife cheating on you. I'm sorry. She could say all this stuff and be like, this is your fault. But at the end of the day, she's the one that cheated. You didn't cheat. You've been working your butt off. Literally working 48 hours a week, trying your very best. And she goes behind your back and somehow says, oh yeah, I'm cheating, but it's your fault that I'm cheating. I fell in love with someone else. This is your fault. And it's like, no, dude, if you had any self-respect, you'd be working on your marriage. So no, you're not overreacting. I'd be so pissed off and so upset as well, because your wife is the one who's throwing away everything that you guys have built together, and that is absolutely not your fault. My toxic entitled classmate humiliated me in front of the entire class. So I waited patiently and eventually got my revenge in such a way that quite literally left her speechless, as she never spoke to me ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that me and this other person were never really friends. We were just kind of classmates who sat near each other. We swapped jokes when it suited her and ignored each other the rest of the time. Well, one day in class, I said something dumb, not even trying to be funny. I was legitimately just trying to be honest, and she saw an opening. In a loud voice with a smug grin in front of the entire class, she said to me, "Oh my god, are you actually that stupid?" Well, this is when all the attention and laughter got pointed at me. The teacher didn't even check it. I just laughed it off, but on the inside, it stung. You know when you replay something later and think, I should have said something back? Well, I didn't. Instead, I waited. A couple of weeks later, we had a group project, and she ended up in mine, not as her first choice. She didn't do much, but she thought that she could still coast off of the work. So when it came time to present, I gave the teacher the version I finished without her part in it. And I also told him that she didn't contribute, and I gave proof. She then looked confused when she didn't get called up, and even more confused when she got marked separately. And she was probably the most confused when she asked if I said anything, and I just said, well, I didn't think you wanted my input. You said I was stupid, remember? I didn't make a scene, I didn't raise my voice, but I still heard someone say dang from the back of the room. And it was so sweet. She then never spoke to me ever again, but it feels good knowing that I got the last word. Okay, I'm gonna say it, I hate people like this. I hate people who only call you out to try and embarrass you, and they're not actually your friend. Seriously, these people suck. They look for reasons to complain about you, and chances are they're probably talking bad about you behind your back. Like, let's be honest, this lady probably fits the bill. She's probably gossiping about everybody. And yeah, she got that momentary pleasure of calling you out and be like, oh my god, you're so stupid. But I just love the fact that you got that last laugh. You bided your time and waited for the perfect time to strike, and my god, did it pay off wonderfully. So good for you, because that lady sounds like she absolutely deserves it. Am I the jerk for exposing my sister's fake cancer diagnosis to our parents after she refused to come clean herself? Because right now she's saying that I ruined her life, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, I just found out that my sister, who has been telling my whole family she has cancer for the last 8 months, has been lying about all of it. She shaved her head, she said she was doing chemo, and even had our parents move in to help her through the treatment. I started to have doubt when, besides also staying out late relatively frequently, she would never let anyone attend appointments with her, and she clearly had way too much energy for someone going through aggressive chemotherapy. Last week, I ran into the office manager of my sister's oncologist at a coffee shop, and I casually mentioned my sister, and the office manager was confused. She had no idea who I was talking about. I then did some digging through doctors, and I spoke to my sister about what I learned, and she eventually broke down and spilled her guts. It turns out she fabricated the whole story because she was in over her head with debt and wasn't able to afford her apartment anymore. The cancer story got our parents to move in, and she could then stop paying her bills. Well, when I heard this, I was furious. I told her she had 24 hours to tell our parents the truth, or I would. She asked me not to tell them because it would ruin her relationship with them. Well, wouldn't you guess it, she didn't say a single thing. So yesterday, I took everything to our parents. And as you can probably imagine, our parents were heartbroken. My sister is now acting like I had no right to out her, and she didn't even say this part to our parents, but she was going to stage a miraculous recovery next month. She said that I ruined her life, and that families should be trying to defend each other rather than expose each other. So am I the jerk for exposing my sister for faking her cancer diagnosis? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Dude, this is crazy. Are you kidding me right now? Your sister's a terrible person. Because if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Like seriously, she's faking cancer to get her parents to pay for everything. Like that is unacceptable, and I don't blame you for exposing her, because this is absolutely unacceptable. My cousin's fiance criticizes me
me for calling my aunt and uncle my mom and dad, claiming that even though they adopted me, apparently they're not my real parents and I have no right to call them that. And I'm honestly so offended that I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so here's some really important background information. I'm an 18-year-old female, and when I was 3 years old, my father, unfortunately, passed away in a car crash, leaving my mother alone to take care of me. But with the death of my father, she spiraled into depression, and she became an alcoholic, and the alcohol addiction opened up to basically more addiction, and that's when my father's family stepped in. With the help of the courts, I was removed from her custody, and from there, I was put into the care of my aunt and uncle, and they eventually adopted me after my mom passed away about a year later. So I've spent most of my life living with my aunt and uncle, and during middle school, I started to call them mom and dad. It just feels right to me, and no one in my family has any issue with it, or at least they haven't said anything about it. That is until this weekend. And for the sake of the post, I'm gonna refer to them as mom and dad for the rest of the story. So this weekend, we went to spend Memorial Day weekend at my grandparents' house on my mom's side, and at their place, they have like a 2-acre plot of land. So it's common for my extended family to go there on special occasions and or basically just holidays. Well, this weekend, I got to meet one of my cousin's fiance. It was my first time meeting her, and I'm not gonna lie, she was a bit obnoxious. And she came off a bit spoiled. Like, she seems like the kind of person who would announce a pregnancy at a wedding. On Saturday, me, my mom, my dad, my cousin, the fiance, my aunt, and uncle were all sitting at a table outside in the backyard chatting, and it's there that the fiance said to me, "It's crazy how much you look like your mom, but you look nothing like your dad." She then said to my dad, "You sure she's yours?" And the joke flopped hard, and my dad and cousin gave a courtesy chuckle, and my mom spoke up and said, "Well, she's my brother's daughter. He passed away when she was 3, and her mom couldn't take care of her, so we've been raising her ever since." The fiance then said, "Oh, but you called them mom and dad a few minutes ago." And I replied by saying, "Well, yeah." And everyone at that point was quiet for a second, and the fiance broke the silence and said, "Why?" When she said this, I was a little confused and a bit annoyed. So I said to her, "Well, because I can. It's what I want to call them." The fiance then said to me, "But that's weird. They're not your mom and dad. I don't like it." Well, as you can imagine, I was fed up with her by now, so I said to her, "Oh, okay, I'll make sure to write that down in my notes." The table was then silent, and it was super awkward after that, and I dismissed myself from the table and I went to hang out with my grandma. Now, I thought that the whole situation was over, but the next morning when I walked into the kitchen, my mom, my grandparents, and the fiance were in there, and I walked up to my mom and I hugged her saying, "Good morning, Mom." After I said that, the fiance looked at us and said, "I already told you, I don't like it when you call them that. They're your aunt and uncle, not your parents." My grandpa then said, "Hey, it's none of your business what the girl calls them. Mind your own business." Now, after that, she didn't really talk to me much, but she would give me weird looks whenever we were in the same room. But regardless, I hopefully won't see her again for a while, and I kind of feel bad for my cousin who has to deal with her, because her attitude is incredibly inappropriate. Okay, seriously, this fiance was like actively pissing me off as I was reading this. You literally were adopted by your aunt and uncle. So guess what? They are legally your parents. That is literally how it works. Just because they were your aunt and uncle first doesn't mean that they're not now your parents after your parents have passed away and they adopted you. Like, that lady's an idiot for not only speaking up like that, especially with a family that she does not know, but also to be like, you can't say that because I don't like it when you say that. And it's like, dude, I don't know what to tell you. That is so stupid. So yeah, this fiance of your cousin is a complete moron, and I would not pay them any mind, because those are absolutely your parents. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My manager told me to follow the schedule no matter what, so I did exactly that, closing our store incredibly early, resulting in my manager getting written up, as well as a lot of pissed off customers that couldn't get what they wanted. Here's how it went down. Okay, so this happened a few years back when I worked at a small chain retail store. I was a part-time shift supervisor, which basically meant I had all the responsibility and none of the pay. And we had this new manager who came in like a hurricane. She was super into structure and rules and wanted everything to be done exactly how corporate outlined it, which is fine. I'm all for structure. That is, until it becomes absolutely absurd. The issue started when we began getting inconsistent shipments and corporate would update our hours week by week. One week we would close by 9 o'clock and the next it would be 8 o'clock. The posted hours on the door weren't always updated quickly, and I would sometimes use discretion to keep the store open a little later if I saw customers still browsing around. You know, customer service and all that. But then my manager, who we will call Becky, pulls me aside one day and said that I was not being consistent. These were her words. "I don't care if there are 20 people in the store. If the schedule says close at 8, you close at 8. Lock the doors at 8 o'clock sharp. Don't use your judgment. Follow the schedule no matter what." Then she sent me an email about it just to remind me. So this is where where I decided to maliciously comply. That Friday, the mall was doing some late night promo thing and we were packed. Our schedule said 8 o'clock p.m. closing though, so I did exactly what I was told. At 7:55, I got on the intercom and I announced, "Attention shoppers, the store will be closing in 5 minutes. Please bring your items up to the front." Now people were confused. Other stores were staying open late, but I followed orders and at 8 o'clock sharp, I locked the doors. And even then, we had over 30 customers still inside, most of them with full carts. I made them all check out or leave, and some were pissed off, and some just left everything behind. I mean, we lost a lot of sales. Now, what's the cherry on top of this entire story? Becky showed up at 8 o'clock to check on how we handled the crowd and was livid to find the store dark and closed. She even tried to throw me under the bus, but I had her email printed out and highlighted where she said, "Do not use discretion. Follow the posted schedule exactly." Well, as a result, she got a formal write-up from the district manager, and from that point on, I was encouraged to use my judgment once again. Oh man, I love this so much because managers like this are so obnoxious. They literally give you specific guidelines that you need to follow, and then when you actually do that, and it doesn't work out the way they want it to, they try to turn around and be like, "Oh, this is your fault. You're the one that did this." And it's like, dude, thank God you got something in writing. Because if she didn't leave that paper trail, you can bet that she absolutely would have pinned this on you. And that is absolutely messed up. Like, that is so unfair. So good for you for getting back at this lady because she absolutely deserved it. An entitled Karen demands that I turn over my shopping cart to her literally as I'm checking out of the store, as she refuses to take no for an answer, despite the fact that I had $200 worth of groceries I needed to get to my car. Here's how it went down. Okay, so I was shopping at the grocery store checking out. I have a full cart of weekly shopping, some bulk items, party supplies for a little get-together that I'm having, and I'm literally halfway through checking out when this entitled Karen walks up behind me with nothing in her hands, just giving me the stink eye for my cart. And then she pats me on the back and says, "I need your cart." Now, I assumed she was referring to when I was done, so I said, "Oh, all right, I'm still using it though." She then says to me, "No, I need it now. I'm in a hurry and I don't have time to find one. I'm rushing to catch up with something." Now, when she said this, I was literally just standing there speechless. I said to her, "Ma'am, I'm literally using it right now." She then puffs out her chest and says to me, "Well, then take out your stuff. You can just carry it or put it in baskets. I only have a few things to get." Well, the cashier is now giving me the stare. The people behind me are piling up, and I just say to her, "No, I'm not unpacking $200 worth of groceries just because you don't feel like walking 10 feet to get a cart." She then muttered something about people not helping each other anymore, and then she stormed out. I then noticed that she wheeled a cart straight close to the entrance when she left, meaning she walked past them to come disturb me in the first place, which honestly baffles me because this is such a waste of everybody's time. Oh my gosh, this is really weird behavior. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard of anybody going up to someone in line and being like, "Oh, give me your cart." Because even during like busy times, you can always find some kind of cart near like the front of the store. Why would you go up to someone in line and be like, "Oh, I need that one right now. No one else's, just yours." So yeah, this was really weird, and I don't blame you for being like, "What in the heck is going on right now?" Because I know if I was in your shoes, I would be pretty annoyed as well. My entitled coworker insists that I change my vacation days, all because her trip is more fun than mine. Here's what's going on. So at my workplace, we have to ask for vacation time months in advance at work because only a certain number of people can be off at a time. Well, I booked a week of vacation for a family reunion, and this is the first time we've all been together in years. Well, along comes Karen, who obviously didn't plan ahead and now wants to take the exact same week off for a Cancun trip with her friends. When she finds out I already had that week approved, she then asked me to cancel mine. I laughed at first because I thought she was kidding, but apparently she wasn't. She said to me, "Well, it's just a family thing, right? Mine is a real vacation with more fun than yours. I already told everyone that I'm going." I told her, "Well, yeah, but I already booked my flights like months ago." She didn't like that answer and actually tried to guilt trip me in front of my other coworkers, saying that I was being selfish and wrecking her once-in-a-lifetime trip. And by the way, as a side note, she goes on at least 3 vacations a year. When I wouldn't budge, she went to our manager and complained. And luckily, my boss wasn't stupid and said no if she wanted the time off that badly, and that she should have given advance notice. And as a result, she pouted for days and gave me the cold shoulder, all over vacation days that she easily could have planned for. Okay, I love this story because I've run into this exact same situation. You book plane tickets for a trip of some kind, you're going on vacation, you have a reunion, whatever, and then you have that one coworker that everybody hates that you just kind of have to put up with, who comes in and tries to be like, "Oh, you should cancel your trip." Like, that is super obnoxious, so I love the fact that the original poster shut this Karen down, because her behavior is super entitled and no one deserves to deal with that. My manager always called for a 20-minute meeting after work that was also unpaid, so I decided to get some revenge by literally refusing to show up and showing him exactly why this was a stupid idea. Here's how I did it. Okay, to start things out, this was a small team of 10 people that the manager was assigned to, with myself included. It's also important to note that this is not in America, so the US labor laws don't apply here. I was the last person to be hired on the team, so everybody was my senpai. And on the first day that I worked there, they called a team meeting after work. We log off our computers at about 4:55 p.m., we go to the meeting room, and we clock out at about 5:15 p.m. And we do this every single day like clockwork. Now, I said no problem, that's an extra 2.5 hours on a bi-weekly paycheck. And we didn't have to do any actual work besides listen, like, yeah, I'm totally okay with that. Well, when my first payday came in, I saw my full 80 hours, but the extra 2.5 hours were nowhere to be found. So I asked a couple of guys if they only got paid 80 hours too, and they all confirmed it, which meant that we were not getting paid for these meetings. The shift ends, and once again, the manager called for the daily team meeting and to log off at 4:55 and then head to the meeting room. So you know what? I do so. And with that, I sit there for about 5 minutes. And as soon as it hits 5 o'clock p.m., I get up and I say that I need to be somewhere important with everyone's eyes on me. The manager says okay, and then I leave the room, clocking out, and I go home. Well, the next day I do the same thing, and I keep doing that over and over again. And you know what? The manager never stops me. But one day, the manager pulls me to the side and asks me what's this important thing that I need to do after work every day. But it's then that I tell him it's a personal matter, and he leaves it at that. But pretty soon, he catches on. The other guys start leaving right after me, and eventually, within a matter of days of me starting to leave at 5 o'clock, everyone else started doing it too. So the manager started scheduling the meetings for 4:40 p.m., and all it took was one person to not take that crap anymore. Okay, dude, there is nothing that pisses me off more about working a job than having to work unpaid hours. I don't care if it's only 2 hours out of my paycheck. You better believe you're gonna pay me for that, especially if you're keeping me over. So good for you for, like, in a roundabout way, showing them that no, you're not gonna stick around off the clock, because that kind of behavior towards your employee is absolutely atrocious. Today, I got my manager yelled at by a customer over his dumb new rule for our restaurant, causing that rule to be fixed immediately after he got chewed out. Here's how it went down. So to understand what happened, you need to first understand two people, and we'll call these people Susan and Jack. You see, I used to work part-time at a burger joint that had a drive-thru, and I was often the one at the window. Susan was a regular customer, and everyone there had an opinion about her. She's very particular, and has a tendency to snap at you if you don't do it right the first time without being asked. I was her favorite employee though, because I would always take the time to chat with her if we weren't busy. She was actually quite pleasant once you got to know her, just a little bit prickly. And this is where I need to talk about Jack. He was the new general manager, and he was brought in to fix the restaurant. Now, I don't think there was anything that needed fixing, but the owner disagreed. He was originally meant to be the assistant general manager, but then the owner fired our old general manager and Jack was put in charge. He was a piece of work, the kind of manager that you don't want to have. My favorite Jack moment was when he pulled all the staff on shift into the back, literally while we were still open, just to lecture us on not smiling enough. And I'm sure you know the type of manager I'm talking about. Now, one thing we had to do in the drive-thru is put a numbered sticker on the car's side mirror. This sticker was used by the runners who took food out to identify the car, so it was very important. But Susan, however, didn't like having the sticker on her mirror. She was convinced that she would get in an accident if the mirror was covered even a little, and always insisted on having it put on the car door instead. This wasn't out of the ordinary. I mean, we put stickers on doors all the time when we couldn't reach the mirror. However, Jack decided he wasn't having it and made a new rule that we only put stickers on mirrors. And I figured, okay, but if the customer asked for it, it should still be fine, right? Well, no, I was completely wrong. I got chewed out for putting the sticker on Susan's car door. I tried to explain to Jack why I did it, but he wouldn't even listen to me. Eventually, he just huffed at me and said, "Look, you need to put the stickers on the mirror and not the door. No exceptions." Well, fine then. I'll cue my malicious compliance and we'll see how this goes. The next time Susan came in, I put the sticker on her mirror as ordered. And when I did this, she was confused, as I always put it on her door without being asked. She then snapped at me, "What are you doing? Don't put it there, I'll get into an accident." I then explained to her the new rule and that my hands were tied. I mean, I didn't want to get in trouble after all. Then I told her it was Jack's rule. Now, I didn't get to witness the next day directly, unfortunately. However, I heard about it secondhand from my coworkers. Apparently, one of the runners brought out her food, she stopped them and asked them to grab Jack. She then proceeded to give Jack the chewing out of a lifetime about his dumb rule. One particular quote that was relayed to me was basically saying, "What point is it to force them to put it there? They can see it just fine on the door." And you know what, Susan? Those are my thoughts exactly. Anyway, the rule was later amended that customers could request the sticker to be placed on their door. And trust me, this made my life with Susan a lot easier. Yeah, this is a stupid thing that Jack literally brought upon himself. All he had to do was be accommodating to the customer, dude. It's not that serious. Just put the sticker on their car. I mean, like, come on. So yeah, Jack got exactly what he deserved because his rule was incredibly dumb. And entitled Karen chews me out all because I don't know all the the details about the lawn and garden center that I work at my store, stating that I should know everything about this place and everything about the plants she's buying, even though I'm just a cashier. Here's what happened. So I was cashiering in the lawn and garden center at my store. When I was trained as a cashier, there was no training on the products throughout the store, just how to scan the product and the basics of customer service. Therefore, I really don't know anything about the plants and trees and flowers. That's the associate's job. They stock them so they know where they are located. The store phones will often not be useful in the location due to getting multiple lawn and garden trucks during the week, and the associates moving things around to make room for new products. But ultimately, I don't know anything about whether this plant or that flower will thrive in full sun, or if the ferns are still outside, or if they move them again. As a cashier, you are not allowed to leave your register to roam around or help the customer find something. My job is to ring you up, and that's it. The clientele in lawn and garden are mostly pleasant people looking to build their gardens or buy a lovely plant for their mother, but often, at least in every shift, there is one person who feels slighted because you have no knowledge. Well, this older lady comes up and has a baggie full of plants and flowers. She began putting the plants one by one on the counter and asking me questions about them, to which I would answer, I don't know and I'm not sure. I offered to find an associate for her, but she just waved her hand like it was no big deal. By about the fifth plant, after I had said yet again that I didn't know, she pulls her sunglasses off, looks me in the eye, clearly exacerbated, and says, "How can you work here and know nothing about plants?" I then told her that I was rotated throughout the store like the other cashiers, and that we are not trained to know the products we are selling, and that because we are not allowed to leave the register, I can't really familiarize myself with the plants and flowers. I asked again if she would like me to find an associate who does know the products, and she said she didn't have the time to wait for someone. I then plucked the plastic label from one of her plants out of the soil, and I showed her that it tells a little bit about how to care for the plant, and also there's a QR code that she can scan with her phone that will help out as well. Now, I was sincerely trying to be helpful, but she took that as me being snarky, and I could tell by the way she gave me a long stare. As she finished paying, she put her glasses back on and said nonchalantly, "Do you have a break coming up?" Now, this was an odd question, but I checked the clock and I said, "Yes, ma'am. I have a break in about 30 minutes. She then said to me, "Well, perhaps on your break you can walk around here and learn something." I then wished her a good day and I took my 30-minute break where I just sat in my car, listened to some music, and ate a Slim Jim. And then I took a nap like normal. And also, perhaps when she got home that day, she looked up the plants that she bought and learned something, because none of that is my responsibility. Dude, that lady's so annoying, especially in a world with smartphones. Like, really? You need to ask someone and harass some like hourly worker and be like, "Oh, you know nothing," instead of looking it up herself and being like, "Okay, what kind of sunlight does this stupid plant need?" Like, why go after a cashier who literally explained why they don't know anything about the store? That's literally not their job to know all this stuff. That's the associates. I can't stand people who act like that. That is so annoying. So truly, I think you handled this really well, especially when this Karen was being an obnoxious jerk. Am I the jerk for deciding to leave work early in protest, since my two coworkers stay in the back for more than 10 minutes and literally don't do any work? Here's what's going on. Okay, so I work in a place with two of my coworkers. Let's call them Zane and Marisha. And they have developed a habit of vanishing into the back room together during every shift. Every time we're scheduled together, they disappear for long stretches of time, leaving me alone up front doing all the work. Now, this is not a one-time thing. It's a pattern. I'm left juggling everything by myself while they're God knows where doing who knows what. It's frustrating, demoralizing, and honestly just disrespectful. Oh, and guess what? Management has already talked to them about this. More than once, mind you, and nothing's changed. Zane and Marisha keep doing it like they're invincible. And if you try to bring it up directly, Marisha immediately gets defensive and snaps with something like, "Well, I've been here since really early and I already did everything." And it's like, okay, and? You're still on the clock. It's not your break time. Just because you were here earlier doesn't mean that you're now entitled to vanish and leave your coworkers stranded like it's recess. We're all getting paid to be here and do our jobs, not hide in the back while someone else cleans up the mess. So I've reached my limit. This has been happening for over a year. I've decided that the next time they both disappear into the back and stay there for more than 10 minutes, I'm just gonna leave. I'm clocking out and I'm walking out because I'm done being the only one who cares. Some people are telling me that that's dramatic or unprofessional, but I feel like it's the only way anyone's gonna take me seriously. So I need to know, would I be the jerk if I walked out next time they vanish on me again? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated. Okay, in my opinion, I don't think this is your problem, but instead this really does need to keep going to management. And if you haven't already, I would make a paper trail immediately of all the reports you make. Walking out and clocking out is only gonna get you in trouble and probably fired. Like, that's not gonna give any benefit to you, and if anything, it's just gonna give them a reason to fire you. Like, I'm just not convinced any real change is gonna going to happen by doing that. So instead, I would keep reporting it to management and even go to corporate if you need to, because this kind of behavior is super frustrating. I completely get it. Here you are trying to do your job and make sure the store is run properly, and two of the people that you work with are literally missing in action. They're not doing what they're supposed to, and they're just off probably in the back hanging out. And trust me, I totally get it. That's not fair, and you should not have to deal with that. But on that same note, you should not be the person to enforce any kind of rules, and you shouldn't try to get back at them by clocking out and leaving. You're only going to risk your job, and it's only going to get you in trouble. Because if management doesn't care about Zane and Marisha literally going off and doing whatever they want, then trust me, they will not care about firing you and finding a replacement. An entitled Karen refuses to pay me for the site I built for her, literally screwing me out of thousands of dollars, all because she wanted to keep all the money for herself. So I decided to get some revenge by pretending to be the hacker that took down her website very recently, resulting in her paying me what she owes me for the work I did for her website, as she assumed that I was the hacker that took down her site, despite the fact that I definitely wasn't. Here's what happened. Okay, so this is basically about a freelance revenge story that happened about 8 years ago, and it was one of the first times I was ghosted without paying. Now, for a bit of context, I created a landing page for this lady that would promote her elven symbol jewelry store. It was a bunch of esoteric BS, but I was young and trying to break into copywriting, so I took any deal that I could. We agreed on a pure performance deal. So I got nothing up front, but we settled on a 5% performance fee. Her WordPress store was really small, and I was aiming to get about $800 out of it. But honestly, at some level, I would have been happy to just do it for practice and for my portfolio. Well, long story short, I wrote the landing page and I built it inside of her WordPress site. She started running some Facebook ads on it, and I was shocked to see that it was actually converting. On day 1, she got $120. On day 2, $200. On day 3, she got $150. And on day 4, $360. And this kept going and going. And by the end of the month, that landing page brought in about $6,000 in revenue. And I honestly thought that I struck gold. $300 in royalty in the first month? Like, are you kidding me? I was going to make bank from like 2 days of work. Well, predictably, she disappeared the moment I mentioned first invoice. 3 months go by and I get nothing. No replies to emails and calls go unanswered. She's still running ads. I mean, I can see all the sales coming in because I still have access to her website. Then out of nowhere, I get a panic message. My site is down. Are you doing this? Please stop. Now, for the record, I had nothing to do with her store going down. Probably just her cheap hosting. But after being ghosted for months while she made thousands off of my work, I knew this could be my one and only shot at getting paid. So you know what? I just played along. But I had to be careful. I couldn't just admit in writing that I'm the hacker and threaten her to pay up. Like, what if she went to the police and showed them the messages? No, I had to make her think that I was, but not admit to anything at the same time. So I replied. I said to her, sorry, but I'm not going to pay you until you pay me what you owe me. Well, this turned out to be the perfect level of vague. I never said that I hacked her site. I never threatened to keep it down. And instead, I just looked really suspicious. She then immediately called me and asked me what I want. I told her I still have access to her website and Google Analytics. I can see what she made off the landing page and I want what we agreed on. 5% of sales from that landing page. Well, it ended up being just shy of $1,500. After that, she then said she'll take care of it. We got off the call and I sent her the final invoice. And right then, she wired the money immediately. She then messaged me with a payment confirmation from her bank and asked me to enable her website. So in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, it worked. I was shaking when I typed back, but I replied by saying, I had nothing to do with your website crashing. You should talk to your hosting provider. After that, I never heard from her again, but I'm honestly just so glad that I ended up getting paid. Dude, I love this so much. This is like the best kind of revenge you ever want to get because this Karen deserved this. The second anybody doesn't pay someone for their work on time, that for me marks you as a bad person right then and there. Like across the board, you're a garbage human being if you don't pay people for their work. Whether that's building out a website or I don't know, lawn care or whatever it is. Just pay people what you promised them. Seriously. And you agreed to give basically the original poster some royalties, so you gotta do that. So seriously, good for the original poster for tricking them into paying you. That is a brilliant way to get your money back. Because chances are this Karen probably wasn't even paying for hosting or something like that. Because based on their history, I wouldn't be surprised if they were skimping on all of that from the very beginning. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My idiotic supervisor says that if I'm even 5 minutes late to work, then I should not even bother showing up in the first place. So I decided to maliciously comply, eventually leading to this guy looking like a complete moron. Here's how it went down. Okay, I used to have this super chill supervisor who understood that traffic happens, life happens, as long as we get the work done. Then we got a new guy who was the corporate type and obsessed with punctuality culture. Well, the first week he calls me into his office. He says to me, "You've been 5 to
10 minutes late a few times. That won't fly anymore. If you're late again, don't even bother coming in at all.
I then asked if we could talk about adjusting my shift slightly, as I work late most days anyway. He then cuts me off and says,
We have to maintain standards, no exceptions.
so I thought to myself, okay then. Next Monday I hit traffic and the GPS says I'll be 12 minutes late. So I just didn't go in. I took the day and I sent an email to him. I'm just following your guidance. Late again, so I won't be coming in. Well, I didn't get a reply. Fast forward and I did the same thing again on Thursday. It was the same deal with a light traffic delay and I decided to stay home. Human Resources finally emails me like, are you planning to return to work? And I forwarded them his exact words with no edits. Suddenly, there's a clarification meeting, and apparently the policy was miscommunicated. I was then welcomed back, and minor delays will now be handled with understanding. Because I guess at the end of the day, he didn't expect me to follow his instructions that well, which led to him looking like a complete moron. I love this so much because my God, I can't stand managers like this. They're idiotic, they're super obsessive, and they make everybody else's lives a complete nightmare. So good for you for sticking it to this guy in a way that he will truly never forget. An entitled customer mouths off at my assistant manager, treating him like garbage in a way that was truly unacceptable. So my assistant manager got revenge by humiliating them in a way that they are truly not expecting. Here's how it went down. So this was from many years ago when I was a retail salesperson in a jewelry store in a shopping mall. This really did happen and it's one of my favorite memories. Our assistant manager, who we'll call Jerry for the sake of the story, sold a really fancy crystal set to a couple who was going to give it as a wedding gift. I was within earshot during most of the transaction, which took a long time and featured the husband being a jerk to Jerry the entire time. We're talking condescending, demanding, demeaning, pretty much the works. But Jerry was a total professional. He kept his cool and remained cheerful and obliging during all of the mistreatment he was receiving. At the end of the transaction, he asked them if they would like some complimentary gift wrapping. The customer agreed, and so Jerry took the box into the back room and did a spectacular wrapping job. He went all out with luxury ribbons, silver metallic textured paper, literally the works. So the customer left, Jerry smiled and then waved goodbye. When they were gone, he was still smiling, and I asked why he was so cheerful after that experience. Jerry said to me, "Oh, it's fine," and held up the price tag and smiled. The crystal set had cost around $150, which back in my day was about $500 in total. And while in the back room wrapping the gift, Jerry had removed the original price tag, but then stuck new ones on the bottom of each one, something like maybe $17 on each one, even going as low as $3. Then he wrapped them up all nice and pretty. He then said that the beauty of all of this is that they will never know, and then gave a satisfied laugh knowing that these people were about to look incredibly stupid. Oh man, I love this so much because you know for a fact they did not expect that the price is going to be on the bottom of it, let alone the wrong price, making them look incredibly cheap. Like the bride and groom eventually are going to be like, "Oh wow, look at these crystal glasses that we got. Wait a second, this is really cheap glass. What were they doing?" Whereas everybody else probably got them something like really fancy and worth their while. So seriously, good for Jerry. We need more Jerrys in the world, especially in the workforce, because customers like this absolutely deserve to get punished, especially if they're going to be condescending. Am I the jerk for leaving dinner with my parents early after they called my girlfriend disgusting for kissing me on the cheek? Because right now they're saying that I need to apologize for leaving early, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I've been a lurker here for a while, but I now have a situation that I need to know if I'm wrong about. I'm a 32-year-old female, and I've been dating my girlfriend, who I will call Ruby, for about 10 months now. She is 48 years old, and yes, I'm aware of our age gap. I'm a fully grown woman, I can make my own choices, and Ruby treats me really well. She's been the first in a long string of really awful exes to do so. She is honestly an absolute angel. Now, for some more context, my parents and I have never really been close, as they honestly just didn't really care about me as a kid. I was always being handed off to nannies and ignored when I tried to play with them. They would always leave me behind with said nannies when they went on business trips and vacations. And then when I got older, they would just leave me all alone. It was a terrible way to grow up, but I've moved on from it. I can't let my childhood define my entire life. And once I moved out, we rarely talk besides holidays and birthdays. Anyways, in the past couple of years, my parents have started reaching out more and trying to connect. I was a little weary at first, as I thought maybe they wanted something from me, but after feeling them out for a bit, I think they just feel bad for how they ignored me when I was young. I slowly started letting them into my life, and a few months ago, I told them about Ruby. They immediately jumped into telling me how I'm too young to be dating someone so old, and so on and so forth. But I shut that down immediately. I told them they don't get to say stuff like that to me ever. They can either support me after all the stuff they pulled, or they can go away. And you know what? That seemed to shut them up. Fast forward to last night where me, Ruby, and my parents all had dinner together. It was their first time meeting her, and it was going smoothly up until Ruby gave me a peck on the lips before going to the bathroom. The second she was out of earshot, my mom just blurted out something like, "Oh, Ruby just absolutely disgusts us. She is disgusting." disgusting. Now, I didn't say anything, but I was just so stunned as they both started to explain that they can't accept this relationship or some other BS like that. I mean, I barely remember. All I could hear was static. I was so pissed off. I flagged down our waitress, told my parents that we were leaving, and I paid the bill as we all sat in awkward silence. And it's like, I guess they didn't want to embarrass themselves in front of the waitress. I don't even know. By then, Ruby was back and she was totally confused. I explained everything in the cab ride home, and honestly, I started tearing up a bit. I was finally starting to think I actually had parents, but then they go and say awful stuff like that. Ruby was pretty shocked and comforted me as best as she could. Now, my parents have been calling me and texting me, scolding me for leaving like that, and saying that they just want me to date someone right for me. They even looped a couple aunts and uncles in, who never even really give a crap about me in the first place, and have them telling me to answer my parents and apologize. So with all that in mind, I really just need to know, am I the jerk in this situation for walking out? Because right now I'm still incredibly upset. Okay, yeah, there's no way you're at fault here. This is so unbelievably disgusting, the fact that your parents did this to you. Because honestly, your girlfriend didn't do anything wrong. She literally just kissed you on the cheek before she went to the bathroom. So no, you're not the jerk because the way they're treating you is completely out of line. A group of entitled jerks decide to be way too loud at a graduation ceremony for my daughter. So me and my family decided to get some revenge on them by literally returning the favor and ruining their experience as well. Here's how we did it. So I was at a college graduation yesterday with two sons to watch our daughter graduate. There were two young women behind us in the bleachers, and they were talking nonstop and not quietly. I turned around and I asked them nicely if they could be quieter so we could actually hear the speakers, and this was before the actual announcement of names and degrees. And one of the women behind us said something like, "Oh, they're just talking for now. It's not even the graduation, so we can talk as much as we want to." Well, needless to say, they did not quiet down, and I believe they stepped it up just to annoy me. During their loud conversations, we learned the first name of their brother, who we will call Ray for the sake of the story, and with a quick glance at the program, we located the only graduate named Ray, as well as the name of the graduate to be announced before him. My sons were texting, including me, and they plotted their revenge, all silently via texting back and forth, especially once we learned they were going to record their brother's walk. One of the women behind us was readying her phone to record the announcement of her brother's name and his walk across the stage to shake hands with a couple of dignitaries. When they announced the person before Ray, all three of us stood up, waving our arms and screaming as loudly as we could. And you know what? We continued during that person's announcement and then during Ray's. She then replayed it on her phone, but all you could hear once we started yelling was our yells. No Ray announcement at all, nor did she capture video of him walking across the stage. We had blocked that out by standing and waving. Now, we learned this from her comments during a couple replays on her phone behind us, and some choice words along with it. Now, thankfully, my wife was seated in the front row of the stage and she recorded our daughter's walk, so these idiots had no chance to get even. Yeah, seriously, when you're at a graduation, there's no reason to act like that. Like, just be quiet and wait your turn. You're literally just trying to watch someone graduate. Like, this is a big deal. You don't want to miss it, and you don't want someone talking the entire time. So honestly, this level of revenge kind of makes sense to me, and I think I would have done the same thing, especially if the people behind me were being obnoxious like the people in this story. My manager changed an annoying policy that mostly affects me, so I decided to maliciously comply, effectively showing him how dumb it truly is. Here's how it went down. Okay, so this happened mid-2022. I was hired almost fully remotely at my current job as a systems engineer, and this was agreed upon by human resources and the hiring director. Part of my job is on-site data center support. For months, I didn't have to do anything because nothing really came up, but as time went on, I did more data center work, which is not a big deal because two of them are close to me by car. Fast forward to October of 2023, and due to client requirements, daily IDF and MDF checks were required again. It was split up amongst all the engineering teams, with me being the lucky one to having to do it on Mondays. My main coworker, who's now my team lead, was over an hour away because the train to his area was down, but with the express train and bus, I could get there in about an hour. During the meeting, the manager stated to me, "You don't have to stay in the office all day. This was approved by the director and you could just go in, do the checks, and leave when you want." So I think to myself, great. I would go in, sign into work while on the train and bus, do the checks and anything else I might need to do, and then go straight home. And this went on for well over a year. Well, a couple of months ago, my manager stated that if we go in, we have to stay in for the rest of the day. And he didn't even have the audacity to tell us. My manager lead had to tell us during a meeting, and he thought it was complete BS as well. I don't know the reasoning, but it's such a waste of time and worse for my work. But then I realized I could go in later in the day and then leave when I sign off for work at 3:30 p.m. Now I leave for the 12:30 p.m. train to get to the office by 2, because it's a 90-minute commute. I do the checks and anything else that might need to be done, and then I leave by 3:30. One afternoon, my manager calls me and I mentioned that I was on the train. He then asked me, "Okay, did you start late today?" And I
responded by saying no, I'm just going to the office for the checks like every Monday. Well, he didn't respond, knowing that I am still technically listening to his stupid requirement. My team lead laughed when I told him that, because honestly, this policy was incredibly stupid. Okay, I've said it once and I'll say it again, I can't stand managers who make up policies that don't make any sense. And this story is a fantastic example of that. Like literally, they're just wasting the original poster's time. So good for you for like maliciously complying in this story, because your manager really needed to have it illustrated that what they're expecting you to do is incredibly stupid. Am I the jerk for kicking a family out of our condominium pool just because they don't live here and they literally are not residents of our condominium? Because right now I kind of feel bad and I'm not sure if I made a big mistake. Here's how it went down. Okay, so I was enjoying my coffee poolside at our condominium on a Sunday morning. A mother and her two kids arrived who were clearly not residents because they drove up with all of their pool stuff in their car and changed into their bathing suits in the bathroom. A resident, on the other hand, would just walk here, as the association isn't that big, and would have changed in their own unit. It's been almost 100 degrees for a week. The kids jumped in the pool and started splashing around, having a great time. And yeah, they were noisy, but they were just being kids. I started thinking about what if all the kids from the surrounding apartment buildings started using our pool? Well, it's at this moment I might be the jerk, because I pointed out the sign that said residents only, and I then made them leave. Because at the end of the day, they weren't really harming anything. The kids were so disappointed that I made them leave that they started crying. It has been so hot that I'm sure being in the pool was a great relief. But if I'm being completely honest, we pay for the pool. Plus, if they got injured, they would sue the condo association. If word got out that anyone can swim in our pool, then anyone would. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because honestly, I feel like I made a mistake. So in my opinion, I don't think you're totally the jerk, but I don't think this is something you should ever try to police ever again. And instead, I would like report this to like the association in charge of that place. Like, I totally get where you're coming from. It is residents only, and you don't want anybody showing up and swimming in the pool, especially if you've got skin in the game where you're like, look, I pay for it. This is something I literally put my money into to make sure it's maintained. Like, I can understand that aspect of it, but I also think this is something someone else should handle. So no, you're not the jerk for kicking them out, but also this should never have to come from you ever again. An entitled Karen neighbor decided to leave a note on my car, even though I parked my car legally on the street in front of her house, as she claimed that I had no right to do so and that I was blocking traffic, even though I definitely wasn't. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I got a note on my car that said something absolutely ridiculous. It said the following: please consider when you have no intention of going out for so far 3 days. By parking like this, you make it incredibly difficult for people to turn around. Our elderly relatives visit me on the weekend, and they were unable to park outside of our house. Please be considerate, as you don't even live down this road. So after getting this message, I went and I talked to the lady and I explained. I said to her that I lived around the corner on the walkway attached to the road, and that there was plenty of space for turning, at least a car and a half wide. I also told her I got sick and was in bed with a vomit virus for like 2 days. I said that she has space on her driveway for 2 cars if she backs one up into the garage, but apparently none of that mattered to her. It's just too much to be parking on the public road in front of someone's houses on the weekend. Also, apparently it's my fault for choosing to live in a house on a walkway and no driveway. She didn't seem to like when I informed her that I didn't have much of a choice in what house my parents bought before I was born. I honestly just went to talk to her, assuming it was a case of some kind of misunderstanding. If she was polite to me, I would have offered to give her a way to contact me to move my car next time if I could. But entitled Karens like this think they own the public road, so instead, this entitled Karen gets absolutely nothing from me. Yeah, people like this are so weird. You can literally park wherever you want. It's a public road. So yeah, that Karen was completely out of line, and honestly, I hope you park in front of her house some more, because you literally have every right to do so. My entitled sister hosted a beach trip for the entire family, but after I told her that she couldn't have my favorite swimsuit, she freaked out and left early, refusing to pay for a large portion of the bill, leaving the rest of us stuck having to pay off the balance. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened really recently. My sister, who we will call Jay, and her husband organized and fully sponsored a 2-day family beach trip as their treat before flying back to the United Kingdom. Day 1 was perfect. It was amazing. Everyone was vibing and super chill. There was great food and lots of laughs. It's the kind of day where you wish you could bottle it up, where everyone is enjoying the time together. But then day 2 came around. Jay woke up in a good mood, same as everybody else. And then a few hours in, all of us sisters decided to go swimming. Now, before the trip, Jay asked if she could borrow her favorite swimsuit of mine. I forgot to pack that one, but I did bring an extra and I offered it to her. And she said that was totally fine until she saw the new swimsuit I was wearing, and suddenly she wanted that one instead. Well, I told her no, because she already had the extra suit that I bought for her, and she had been okay with it. I thought it was no big deal, so I went outside to take some pictures. Well, not long after, our older sister told me that Jay and her husband were suddenly leaving early. Now, what's the reason, you might be wondering? They said that they had to prepare their things for the United Kingdom trip, which was really weird because that definitely wasn't the plan. They even brought our brother and cousin with them since they all came in the same car, so it kind of messed up a lot for the rest of us. But here's the real kicker. They left us with a huge chunk of the resort bill unpaid, plus the car gas expenses that were originally covered by them. So I'm thinking to myself, oh, well, so much for our treat. Clearly that was not the case. So yeah, what started as a sweet farewell trip turned into a passive-aggressive exit, all because I wouldn't give up my swimsuit. And at the end of it, it ended with a surprise bill, which for me just proves once and for all that my sister is super entitled, because this behavior is completely uncalled for. Oh man, talk about a one-way trip to never trusting your sister ever again. Because if she could do this once, my god, she could absolutely do this again in a heartbeat. What in the world was she thinking, dude? She literally planned a 2-day trip with the family, didn't get what she wanted with one single swimsuit, and was like, okay, I'm gonna leave you with some bills to pay for. This is no longer my treat. I need to get ready for the United Kingdom. It's like, what are you talking about? That is absolutely crazy talk. Like, I know for a fact I would never trust them in any capacity ever again. She would get put on that secret list that pretty much all of us have, like, let's be honest. And it's a list of people where we're like, okay, these people cannot be trusted. You can't give them any information, and there's no way you can give them money. Because that's where the sister belongs. She belongs like right in the middle of that list because this is unbelievable behavior. She has betrayed the entire family, and that is honestly an understatement. An entitled couple refuses to pay me for my entire time babysitting after their baby fell asleep within 20 minutes of me being there, as they claim that I didn't do any work for the 4 hours I was there, and that according to them, I shouldn't get my full pay. And so right now, I'm honestly feeling very jaded, and I'm honestly not sure what to do. Here's what's going on. Also, this story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit, so please check out the link in the description if you would like to submit your own story, because it very easily could be featured on the podcast. Let's get started. I'm a 19-year-old female, and I babysit occasionally for a couple in my neighborhood. Now, they are nice, and the kid is sweet, so it's usually just an easy gig. Last weekend, they asked if I could watch their 2-year-old from 6 o'clock p.m. until 10 o'clock p.m. while they went out to dinner with friends. Now, I agreed on the usual rate, and I showed up at 6 o'clock. Well, by 6:20, the baby was already passed out in my arms after a bottle and a quick cuddle. I laid her in her crib, and I didn't hear a peep the rest of the night. Literally just sat on the couch scrolling my phone for almost 4 hours and checked the baby monitor a few times, and that was pretty much it. They then came home at around 9:45, and they were surprised the baby had been asleep almost the entire time. That was when the husband half-jokingly said, "Dang, maybe we should just pay you for like 20 minutes of work." And when he said that, the wife laughed. Now, I laughed too at first, thinking it was just a joke, but then they handed me cash for 1 hour and said, "Honestly, we feel weird paying full price when you didn't really do anything." But I told them I still came over and they still had their night out, and part of babysitting is just being there in case the baby wakes up. But they didn't budge. They said they'd make it up to me next time. But I left feeling kind of taken advantage of. I didn't argue further because I didn't want to cause a scene. When I vented to my sister, she said they were being cheap, and I was totally right to expect full pay. So seriously, I need to know, am I the jerk for expecting full pay even though the baby was asleep almost the entire time? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, I want to first start off by saying that this post that we're talking about right now not only came from our subreddit, but also it got 5 million views, meaning that a lot of people have seen this and a lot of people have commented on this. And just from scrolling through the comments itself, like, my god, everybody's in agreement that these people suck. They are literally screwing you out of your money. Dude, there's no way this is okay. Because the original poster's right. Half the battle of babysitting is just being there in case something goes wrong, or in case like the baby wakes up. So the fact that they're trying to be like, oh, I'm sorry, but you only did like 20 minutes of work. Like, that's crazy to me. That is not what this is about. You're there as a safety net. If they really thought that, oh yeah, you didn't do much work, then you could have easily put the kid to bed and then gone home. Like, that's basically what they're saying, right? And just because the kid was asleep doesn't mean that you shouldn't get paid for the full time that you were there. So seriously, if you do plan on babysitting for them in the future, which I would never do that again, I would take the advice of some of the people in the comments where they're basically saying like, you have to pay me in advance. Or even better yet, you say nothing until you get there. Then you say, look, you still owe me from last time and I need payment up front. Otherwise, this is just not gonna work. And if they say no, then you just walk out and then they have to cancel their plans. But seriously, in my opinion, I would never work with these people ever again because these people are super cheap and you do not deserve that in the slightest.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
My entitled coworker refuses to learn how to spell my name correctly, so I decided to get some revenge by doing the exact same thing to her in such a way where she literally corrected her bad behavior almost instantly. Here's how I did it. Okay, so I'm a nurse at a small long-term care hospital. I have a not-so-common name that is spelled with
with extra letters. It's frequently misspelled and it's not a problem, but I will correct people until they learn to spell it right. I even have a trick to show how to really remember how to spell it. Well, we got an arrogant CNA working with us for a while. She fancied herself as good as a nurse. She wore a white coat, which by the way, very few nurses wear them anymore, demanded that nurses give medications to patients without any background, berated other coworkers, talked down to families and patients, and was entirely insufferable. Her name is very common with multiple possible spellings, but hers is very simple. Now, I didn't work with her that often since she worked at night, and this is all the better to avoid the higher-ups who definitely would not put up with her BS. But one day I was finally working with her as a nurse one night. In each room, there's a board that we write our names on so the patients know who is taking care of them. Usually, the CNA is the first in the room, and we will put the names on the board. Well, it's then that I noticed that she spelled my name wrong, so I fixed it when I saw her. I then saw her a bit later and I said, "Hey, I saw you spelled my name wrong, but I fixed it, but in the future, here's how you actually spell it." Now, when I said this reasonable response, she replied in a nasty tone and said, "I don't have time for that." So with that bit of vitriol, I decided to get some revenge. I went into every room that she was assigned to, which by the way was at least twice as many as the nurses got, and I changed the spelling of her name, which by the way, her name is super easy to remember, to literally the longest and most wrong spelling version of it possible. And you know what? She never spelled my name wrong again because she saw very quickly how petty I could be. Oh man, I hate people like this. This Karen of a coworker literally thought they had so much authority and power, so much so that they would talk down to families and patients. Like for me, I can deal with a coworker who's nasty, but the second you start affecting customers or patients or families who literally are just there trying to I don't know, make sure their family member's healthy, that's when you've got some serious problems on your hand and you absolutely deserve something like this. And it's so funny because she's trying to be like, "I don't have time for your correction. Please leave me alone. I'm better than you." That's the vibe I'm kind of getting. It's like, dude, what are you doing? So good for you for getting this revenge because clearly this lady needs a lot of correction. My entitled manager screams at me and says that if I don't want to be here, then I can leave, as she states in a very condescending tone that she doesn't need me. So I decide to maliciously comply, essentially leading to her trying to get me fired, all because I followed what she said. And after reflecting on this, I honestly wish they did fire me because this manager was insane. Here's how it went down. Okay, so as the title basically implies, my shift lead, who we will call Adriana, tried to get me fired after dismissing me from my shift. I got the job at 16 because I was dating one of the other shift leads. And yes, I already know I'm off to a terrible start. My boyfriend was one of those characters that people either loved or hated. Mostly hated if you come from a loving home, because he was admittedly a terrible person, and Adriana especially hated him, and I'm sure she had her reasons. One Saturday morning, I showed up to work to find Adriana yammering about my boyfriend calling out that day. He didn't tell me he was calling out, and since Adriana was visibly upset already about his absence, I texted him to ask, "Hey, what's up? Why did you call out?" Adriana is really mad about being short-staffed on a Saturday, and now she's going to be yelling at me about it all shift. Now, my boyfriend was one of those people who really like to stir the pot, and I was somehow incredibly oblivious to this at the time. I texted him mostly to vent, but of course he used this as an excuse to start an argument with Adriana. He texted her something about accusing her of talking garbage, which for the record, I did not say that she was doing that, and I can hear from the kitchen she immediately started yelling into oblivion about how if I have something to say, I should have said it to her face, and how I'm such an idiot and such a jerk. This idiot is the dumbest girl I've ever met. Why are you even with him? And honestly, she's a little bit valid. I was really dense back in the day. Amidst her tirade about how stupid she thinks I am, she comes into the office where I'm eating my pre-shift breakfast of Boston Market macaroni in total silence. This whole time, I was just disassociating into my Mac, because what else was I gonna do? Not only did I come from a home where yelling often led to me dodging flying lamps and drawers, but I was genuinely scared that she'd have her cousin jump me if I pissed her off. You know, well before this even happened in the first place. So she's standing there, I'm eating, kind of smiling out of discomfort, just watching her tear into me even more about my intelligence. Now, why, you might be wondering? Well, because my boyfriend called out of work. It was honestly so bizarre. It had escalated so quickly, and I was so disassociated. Life kind of felt like it was moving in slow motion in that moment. She eventually says the magic line that snapped me out of my disassociation and freed me from the wage slave chains that lovely Saturday morning. "If you don't want to be here, then leave, because I don't need you." Now again, this is a Saturday morning at Pizza Hut, that by the way is already very short-staffed. I knew for a fact that she was BSing not needing me, but I also knew that she said it right in front of the office cameras. So I'm thinking that sounded like approval to leave early, didn't it? Especially after being berated for 15 minutes straight as soon as I walked in the door for something that I didn't even do. She later tried to get me fired for walking out on my shift, and the first thing I did was tell the general manager to check the cameras. But I honestly should have just let them fire me. So Adriana, if you're out there, I live every
every day thanking God that I didn't have to experience a phase of my life that included screaming at 16-year-old girls first thing in the morning at my big fancy Pizza Hut shift lead job. I heard you also got fired for attacking a customer, but it's okay. I understand that being a shift lead at Pizza Hut is a very high-stakes environment to be working in. No, really, you don't look insane at all screaming your head off inside of a fast food joint on a near daily basis. That's obviously some completely sane and very intelligent behavior right there. Because trust me, you'll never catch me doing anything like that. Oh man, I really hope I never end up like Adriana because that is so crazy. Especially working at Pizza Hut, dude. Like, chill out, it's not that serious. Sure, you're slow, but guess what? No one's expecting anything out of you. This isn't a Michelin star restaurant, dude. Just chill out. It's gonna be okay. So personally, I love the fact that you walked out early, and I just can't believe that she tried to be like, oh, you're fired. Because as far as I'm concerned, she's the one that lit that candle, and she had no right to talk to you like that in the slightest. My entitled boss wanted me to do rounds every half hour all night as a security guard, while she literally tried to get away with sleeping in our office dining room. So I decided to get some petty revenge by making it so she could never get any sleep all night. Because if I'm not getting any sleep, then trust me, she's not getting any either. Here's how I did it. Okay, so I was 21 years old at the time this happened. I used to work as a security officer for a flower production company, working 24-hour shifts. Each shift group had an average of 5 officers and 1 supervisor. So we agreed to take turns doing the rounds around the building during the night. One officer would be awake watching the building while the others rest. Then the next hour, another one would take his place so that he can rest, and so on and so forth. One day, 2 of us were sent to help out at a sister location of the company that only had 1 officer attending that day. And it was going to be a very busy day, so they needed at least a couple more officers. The day was exhausting. So when the night came and we were the only people in the building, we were going to discuss the same watch turn schedule, but the supervisor of this location didn't want to work that way. She wanted to keep 2 of the officers fixed at 2 of the most important places of the building, while the 3rd officer does rounds around the building every half hour. I tried to talk her into having turns so we could at least rest a bit, but she refused, and she placed me as the officer doing the rounds every half hour. When we were at our stations, we noticed that she went to sleep in the company's dining room, which is the only place with an air conditioning, while leaving us outside on our watch stations with the heat and the mosquitoes. So I decided that if all had to stay awake, then guess what? So did she. We had radios to communicate in case there was some emergency to report. So every time I went to do a round, I took my radio and I said, "Officer reporting my round at 12:30 in the morning. No issues to report on the building." And I could literally hear her holding up a yawn when she replied that she received my report. Then I did it again next round. "Officer reporting my round at 1 o'clock in the morning. No issue to report on the building." And so I kept it going the entire night, not letting her sleep as I reported my rounds every 30 minutes. Sometimes she wouldn't even respond. And in those instances, I would repeat my report, asking for confirmation that the report was received. And she would eventually respond, probably after trying to force herself into pretending that she was awake. In the morning, she looked even more sleep deprived than we did, so I took that as a sign that I did my job very well. Dude, what an awful supervisor, seriously. She literally tried to sit there and be like, you guys go sit at your station to do the rounds. I'll be in the dining room standing guard just to make sure nobody comes in here. See you later. It's like, dude, there's literally a way we can solve this where everyone can get some sleep and not be completely exhausted. Like, what's going on right now? That's so dumb. So yeah, your boss sucked, but I love the way you got some revenge, because I am right there with you. If you have to stay awake, then she absolutely has to as well. My friend came up to my store while I was working, dressed up as a plague doctor, entertaining and shocking pretty much everybody, except for one customer who was frightened at the sight of him. Here's what went down. So I have a friend who likes to occasionally cosplay as historical figures in public. We're talking stuff like Templar Knights or plague doctors. One day while I was working, he decided to show up at the grocery store that I worked at dressed as a plague doctor while he grabbed some groceries. Because there's a huge window at the front where the tills are, I had seen him outside walking in and was already thinking to myself, oh, I wonder how this is gonna go. He came inside and started walking around to find the things he was looking to buy. Now, I tried to focus on the grocery orders that I was ringing through, but I kept glancing around every now and then between each one to see where he was. He also knew that I was working that day, so he came to my till when he was all done. I talked to him for a bit while I scanned his groceries through, joking with him that I didn't think that plague doctors ate whatever he was buying. Some other customers who were lining up behind him or passing by looked at him, and a couple of them also made some friendly remarks as well. After he left though, I had a whole bunch of people asking me all about him. I wasn't embarrassed by it, and I was happy to explain that he is my friend. Finally, when the store quieted down a bit, I had a coworker of mine come over and say, "So did you ask him all the burning questions?" I replied to him, "Listen, I don't have to. He's my friend, and this is not the first time he's done something like that." Then my coworker told me that apparently my friend had scared the crap out of a customer while he was shopping. The customer was down an aisle, grabbing some stuff off the shelf, when they turned around and saw my friend standing there, and they had no idea
idea what to do. Well, my coworker and I laughed about that for a little while, and I explained to her about all the other times he has cosplayed like that out in public. And you know what? There was absolutely no judgment from anyone. Overall though, it made my day and a lot of other people's days a little bit brighter, aside from that one person who got scared. And I'm certain that will probably happen again in the future. Dude, I wish I was this brave to like go cosplay in like public or something like that. I've always been jealous of people who can do this because I just would be way too embarrassed, especially if this wasn't like a convention or some kind of like event going on. To just do that in public, like that takes a crazy amount of bravery. So in my opinion, I think the original poster is friends with the right kind of people. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. If you'd like to submit your own stories, then check out the link in the description. Am I the jerk for not wanting to go back to my mom's house after she and the rest of my siblings treated me like absolute garbage? Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 15-year-old male and I recently moved in with my dad, and now my mom and siblings are making me feel like I'm the villain for it. I don't really know how to feel anymore, so I figured I would ask here. Growing up, I was always kind of the odd one out. My brother is 23 and my sister's 20, and they both are very loud, they're outgoing, and honestly pretty mean sometimes. I've always been quieter. I like drawing, playing video games, and just keeping to myself in general. I didn't really fit into their whole dynamic, and I guess they noticed. My siblings constantly made fun of me for how I talked, what I wore, the fact that I didn't have many friends. They would go through my stuff, steal things, read my messages out loud, and just never stop. I tried to tell my mom, but she always said I was too sensitive or just trying to start problems. It got to the point where I just stopped talking at dinner and even being around the family at all. Things got worse when my brother moved back in this year and he started calling me awful names, and my sister would just laugh or even join in. One time he shoved me into the door so hard, I hit my shoulder and I couldn't move it right for several days. My mom said I was being dramatic and that boys just roughhouse. It's then that I started getting really depressed. I would fake being sick to avoid school or just lock myself in my room all day. Eventually, I told a teacher what was going on and she helped me talk to a counselor, and they got in touch with my dad. For reference, he left when I was younger but lives in the same city. Now, he is not a perfect person, but he actually did listen to me. And you know what? He took me in without a fight, and for the first time in forever, I actually feel safe. But now, my mom is texting me saying that I broke her heart and that I abandoned my family. My sister keeps posting stuff on Instagram about me being fake and ungrateful, and my brother just sent me a thumbs down and hasn't said anything else. A couple of my aunts messaged me saying that I should go back and talk it out because according to her, oh, they're still family, you know. But here's the thing, I don't want to go back. I don't feel like they even see me as a person. I'm finally somewhere I don't have to walk on eggshells or cry myself to sleep. But now I feel guilty, like I'm just being selfish or overreacting. So yeah, am I the jerk for not wanting to go back to that house, even if they say they miss me? Because right now I'm honestly so confused. Okay, first off, I want to say that the way your mom, your brother, and your sister are treating you is not normal. It's pretty obvious that not only does your mom not care about like your well-being, but your siblings are just there to make your life a living nightmare. So I think with all things considered and just how miserable you really were, I don't blame you for moving out and going with your dad. And thank goodness there's actually a school counselor out there who listened and helped you get this started, because I really don't think you should have had to like deal with that in the slightest. And the fact that anyone's trying to be like, oh, they're still your family, like that is crazy because they abandoned you a long time ago the second they started making fun of you and nobody did anything about it. Today is the 1-year anniversary of me going no contact with my family, all because of their demands over my money and my social media. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I haven't spoken to anyone on my mother's side in 1 year over this, and I'm questioning if I ever will again, despite loving them and wanting a relationship with them. I am married and my husband and I share the exact same background story. We both grew up poor in bad environments, and we both left home at 18 for college and never looked back. I didn't meet my husband until I was 31, and by then, we had both managed to overcome our upbringings and create decent lives for ourselves. We both work and we don't have any kids, and we have a very modest home, and we keep our expenses minimal because we prefer regular travel over nicer things. We both work remote as well, so from the outside looking in, we appear to always be on vacation. At one point, I decided to start posting travel content to see if I could generate a following and monetize it, which ended up working out, and I was able to earn small amounts and a few free things here and there, and honestly, I was more than happy with this outcome. So I continue to post in hopes of what this might become. I live across the country from my family, so no one had any idea that I was doing well before I started posting because I usually only saw them on holidays. Well, my increased posting of our travels led to my family members start asking me for money. I was initially happy to help because the requests made sense and it didn't hurt the budget. Over time, it started going from a couple hundred here and there to increasingly ridiculous requests, as well as more people asking. For example, my brother's fiance asked me to pay for their wedding, and this is not just to help, but to literally cover it completely. Well, my husband became fed up, and together we
we created an agreement with each other that any request over a certain amount needs to be approved by the other. He also said that my mother is the only person I need to worry about and to let everyone else take care of themselves. Now, my husband is a lot more bootstrap mentality than I am, so his response is usually no, whereas I used to have a harder time with that. With him supporting me, it became much easier to say no. I even gained confidence after a while, and eventually, everything except someone being homeless or hungry became an easy no for me. My family definitely noticed the shift and commented on it, but it really didn't seem like a big deal. Fast forward and my mom slips up while we're talking on the phone, and I find out that she was lying to me about why she needed money. After I cut everyone off but her, they began asking her to ask me, and she would do this and pretend that it was for her. Now this hurt my feelings, and my response was to stop helping her financially as well. She then started asking other people in the family instead. One day I get a phone call from a cousin of mine, and this cousin makes good money, mind you, but he has an entire family to support, and he is also regularly asked for money. He will ask me why mom's asking him for money instead of me, and tells me that I need to step up and share the load. He then goes on this tangent about how we need to stick together and take care of the people who took care of us. But you know what? I didn't even bother explaining how we got here. Instead, I just kept it civil and then I let it go. After this, a younger relative of mine who also posts content makes a video about people who don't help family and forget where they came from. So imagine my hurt and surprise to open the comments and see my aunt comment and say, "Oh, I won't say any names, but their name rhymes with Clara." And for reference, we'll say that my name is Sarah. Even worse is that the comments had a lot of likes, replies, and laughing emojis from other family members. So you know what? That was more than enough for me. I haven't talked to anyone since then, and I've removed and blocked all of my relatives from social media. I don't know if this is permanent, and I do not miss them, but I'm just not ready to deal with the entitlement and ungratefulness ever again. So seriously, am I making a mistake by doing this? Because right now I'm still incredibly frustrated. Okay, honestly, if my family was trying to use me for money, all because of something I worked hard to achieve, dude, you better believe I would cut them off as well. Like, this is not normal behavior. You don't treat family like this and try to hustle them for money. Like, my God, your brother's fiance being like, "Oh, you need to pay for my entire wedding." It's like, dude, get a job and save up and do it yourself. Why am I responsible for that? So yeah, your family sucks, and I don't blame you for cutting them off, because if my family was doing that, I would honestly probably take the exact same action. A group of entitled jerks make my life a living nightmare, as they constantly complain about everything about our restaurant, despite the fact that we were doing the best we could understaffed. So I decided to get some revenge by throwing one of their wireless keys into the Baltimore harbor that they left behind. And sure, it's not my proudest moment, but honestly, it was incredibly satisfying. Here's how it went down. So 10 years ago, I worked at a now defunct restaurant in the Baltimore harbor. We were a fairly busy restaurant, especially for brunch, but unfortunately, most of our front of house staff was incredibly unreliable. The day was June 5th, which was a Sunday, and we expected to be incredibly busy because it was a holiday weekend. When I showed up, only 3 of our 7 servers, 1 of our 2 bartenders, and half the expected amount of back of house had come into shift. So as you can expect, I was swamped with tables. What was supposed to be just the patio section of 6 tables, I now had the patio and part of the inside, a combined 12 table section. Honestly, it was a nightmare, but I was somehow keeping up with everything. My guests could tell we were understaffed, and most of them were pretty understanding that I wasn't as attentive as I'd like to be, and I think that's because they saw me running around so much. Anyways, it's towards the end of the shift, and I get a table of 3 gentlemen who from the very start seemed like they were going to be a pretty needy table. I go over, I greet them, and I ask if they wanted to start with some drinks. They said they would need a minute, and maybe 3 minutes pass and I come back, and before I can even ask about drinks, they tell me that I took too long. They then ask for my name and tell me that I was rude that I didn't introduce myself by name. They then said that if I wanted better tips, I should start doing so right away. Now for context, for whatever reason, our owner didn't want us to introduce ourselves by name, only as their server, but I could tell them if they asked. Now I told them this policy, but I happily provided my name. I then asked if they wanted to put in some drinks and they obliged. I ring in the drinks and about 5 minutes later, they wave me down, and before the drinks are even delivered, they tell me they all decided they changed their minds and they wanted completely different drinks. So I had to run over to the one bartender for the entire restaurant and tell her not to make the drinks even though she was literally halfway done. And she was understandably pissed off. I put in the new drinks and then I go back to see if they're ready for appetizers and entrees. They say yes and then they order. 5 minutes later, a man from the table comes to talk to me while I'm at another table table, and they again decide they changed their minds on the orders, saying that they wanted to change the appetizers. I then had to excuse myself from the other table, flag down the chef, and explain the situation. And if you remember, the back house is also extremely short-staffed, so he is also rightfully furious. So we now have a pissed-off server, a pissed-off bartender, and an angry chef. My service manager then calls for hands, and I bring over their appetizers. 5 minutes later, their entrees come out, and as I check to see if they have everything and if everything's okay, they tell me it's not. They were upset that the entrees came too close to the appetizers, so they want them comped and a round of free drinks for the hassle. So I just said that I would speak to my manager. I explained to my manager, and now she's angry too. She goes over to talk to the table, and when she comes back, she says to comp one appetizer but nothing else. And with that, the last piece of the puzzle has been collected, and everybody now hates this table. At this point, I've had enough, and I stay clear of this table as much as I could, other than to fill waters and pre-bus. Towards the end of service, one of the men asked me how long I'd been doing this. I told him, and he told me I should quit and find something else to do, because according to him, I was really bad at it. But you know what? I just laughed it off. I walked away, I printed their check, and then I dropped it off. I had my manager run the card, but I didn't want to go back. After they left, I went to pick up the check, and of course, they stiffed me. They left me $2 on a $130 bill. As I started clearing the rest of the table and the napkins, I saw that this guy left his Audi key fob under his napkin, so I quickly put it in my pocket to bring it to the host when I had time. A few hours later, the host got a call from the guy asking if we had found a key. The host said that nothing had turned up, but she would check with your server. Well, apparently when she said this, the guest made a comment about how I probably stole it because I looked like the type. As the host told me this, I kind of just lost it internally. I told her I had not seen it, and then a plan was devised. I then proceeded to walk to the back of the restaurant, straight out the back door, and I tossed the keys into the Baltimore Harbor. Now, this is not my proudest moment in life, but after all was said and done, I think it was well deserved because my God, this was absolutely satisfying. Dude, okay, I literally just can't stand people who act like this. They're so needy, they're so obnoxious, and they try to insult everybody in the process. Seriously, this group went down the list. They pissed off the server, the chef, literally the manager and the bartender, all in under an hour, mind you, and then tried to say to the original poster, oh, you need to quit your job and do something else. You're not very good at this. And it's like, dude, come on, what are you doing right now? This is so dumb. And the fact that they screwed you over on any kind of tip, and yes, a tip is absolutely necessary after dealing with that crap. I don't blame you for a second for throwing their key into the harbor, because as far as I'm concerned, they deserve it, especially for the poor treatment they gave you and pretty much everybody inside of that restaurant.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
I left my family 2 years ago and went full no contact after they treated me like garbage for so long, and now they've showed up back in my life and are practically begging me to go with them on a bonding trip. But right now, I honestly am not sure if I should go or not, because these people have really hurt me in the past. Here's what's going on. So I escaped from my old life almost 2 years ago, and honestly, life has been so much better ever since then. Difficult, absolutely, but much better in other aspects. At the start, my family did everything they could to guilt trip me into staying. They were shaming me, they were using manipulation tactics, even following my every move. I then decided to go full no contact for a while, and after almost a full year, they reached out saying they didn't want to lose me and promised to respect my space as long as I at least visited occasionally. Well, I agreed and I visited a couple of times, but when I'm there, I don't even try to interact much anymore. I did try in the beginning, but all I got was indifference or coldness. That killed any motivation to put in much effort. The most shocking part is realizing just how hard my own family made the process of leaving. It's still really surreal at times. My own family, seriously, all because I just wanted freedom. And honestly, if you knew my backstory, then you would know that it has not been easy. And now, one of my siblings says that I'm not putting in the effort and that it hurts our mom to see me come and go and know nothing about my life once I leave. And I'm just left wondering, do I need to explain where I go and what I do or how I live? Like I owe them some kind of update? And you know what? Why? It feels like they want things to go back to how they used to be, and that version of me is long gone. My parents, even at this stage, still blame me and say that this new dynamic is my fault. They've now invited me on a road trip to Bond, and while part of me feels like maybe I should give it a shot, the other part is screaming caution. I've already been roped into going to an event that I didn't even want to attend, so boundaries are already being nudged, and I was promised my decisions would be respected. I told a friend about this, and she said that I'm being difficult, and now I just don't know. I mean, am I being difficult? Is it just in my head? Should I go on this trip or just stay away? I would love to hear from anyone who's had to rebuild themselves after cutting ties and trying to re-engage on their terms.
midterms. Because right now, I seriously am not sure what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I do not think you should go on this trip at all. Someone in the comments pretty much spelled it out, but I think I'm going to articulate it because it's a really good point. And basically, I can't imagine being trapped in a car with these people on a road trip. If they really are as bad as you're saying, and trust me, I completely believe you, I'm not saying that they're not, then in my opinion, I don't think it's a good idea to go anywhere with these people. Because they sound like a nightmare and I just would not want to be stuck with them in some situation where I can't escape. And I seriously just don't think this is the kind of energy that anyone should have to deal with. My entitled neighbor thinks that I'm available for her 24/7 to fix and repair whatever device or handheld thing she might be struggling with, making me incredibly frustrated and very annoyed that I live next to her in the first place. Here's what happened. Okay, so I moved into this apartment approximately 10 years ago, and I was extremely lucky to have an old retired couple living in the apartment in front of me on the same floor. And I say extremely lucky in quotation marks because this was a really annoying situation. When I was told this, I was like, okay, whatever. I'll just greet everyone from the building, including them, and that's it. But somehow this woman is some next level entitled person. She knocks on my door at least once a week ever since I moved in. I don't open the door anymore because whenever I did open the door before, she would just want me to fix her phone or laptop or her TV. She literally wanted me to be her personal handyman or something like that. She even told me, "You're young. You're supposed to know how to fix these things." But this one particular time really made me angry. I had a fever and I was sleeping on the couch, too weak to even go all the way to my bed. My child had a fever too, sleeping next to me, and it was like 9:30 p.m. and then suddenly, someone knocks on the door and I wake up. I realized it must have been her, so I just ignored it and I tried to fall back asleep. After a few seconds, however, she knocked again, but I still decided to ignore it. The third time though, she knocked even louder, and I was like, what in the world is this? It's probably something really serious, right? I thought to myself, they're both very old. They have diabetes, high blood pressure, etc. So probably something happened and she really needs help, right? So I proceeded to get up from the couch slowly. I wrapped myself in a blanket till I got to the door, and she even rang the doorbell. I was then 100% sure it had to be an emergency when she kept doing this because she's never done this before. I then unlocked the door and I asked her what happened, and she's like, "I can't open Facebook. Please fix my phone." I said to her, "I'm sorry, but I won't do that now. I have a fever and I was sleeping already." She then got mad at me, asking why I can't do it now. So I just repeated what I said and I said good night. While I was closing the door, she just yelled at me and said, "I'll be expecting you in the morning to fix my phone." So next time, even if she knocks 100 times on my door and keeps ringing the doorbell, I won't be opening the door for her, even if she actually has some kind of emergency, because trust me, this lady literally is not worth the time. Holy crap, there is no way I would want to put up with that. Seriously, that is crazy. Like if I was in your shoes, I would probably have the police involved already. And it sounds like this was 10 years ago, so I don't know if like doorbell cameras were a big thing 10 years ago, but if they were available, I would be installing that like yesterday and record every instance of this crazy person doing this, because I would probably move. Like there's no way I would ever be able to put up with that, especially if it happened for over a decade. Like that's crazy. I could never deal with that. My friend's new girlfriend called me a pick-me girl and is now trying to turn my friends against me. And right now I feel like my whole world is falling apart and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 36-year-old female and I have a group of 5 friends. We hang out a lot together. We play video games together, go to Friday Night Magic, we're watching movies together, doing D&D, and just generally being nerdy. One of the people in the friend group, who we will call Bruce, has recently gotten a new girlfriend, and we've tried to include her in our get-togethers. The girlfriend, I'll call her Silver, really seems to hate me, and I'm not sure what to do. I didn't notice at first, if I'm honest. She came along to our May the 4th Return of the 5th party sleepover, and one of my friends, who we will call Peter, helped her make a paladin to join in on a D&D one-shot when she said she wanted to learn. However, the other night when I was having a passionate debate with another friend who we will call Steve about the atrocity that was Hush 2 from the DC Comics, Silver absolutely lost it on me. She started yelling about how I was a pick-me and how I was mad that she was in the group and that I wanted to sleep with all the boys, but especially Peter. She yelled for like 5 minutes while I just sat there like a deer in the headlights because I didn't know what to say. She accused me of making my warlock sexy in D&D to make the boys want me, that I picked a pretty girl card for my deck in Magic, that I tried to dress sexy for the May the 4th party. I tried to tell her that I have no interest in sleeping with Bruce or any of my other guy friends, and she just burst into tears. Peter said that maybe I should go for now because she was upset, so that's what I did. Now on Discord, a bunch of them, namely Peter, Bruce, Steve, and someone I'll call Michael, have all said that I should apologize to her, with only my other friend, who we will call Clark, saying that I have nothing to apologize for. There's been a lot of talk about keeping the peace, but I'm not sure what I should apologize for. I didn't make a move on anyone. I haven't slept with or try to sleep with any of my friends. I'm not sure what I should do or what I can do. I don't know what to apologize for, and I feel like my friends are siding with her. What should I do? You need to find better friends. This is insane. First of all, this silver lady is a complete moron. She came in here, got super jealous of you, and then suddenly just said, oh, you're such a pick-me girl. You are such an awful person. You're an idiot. You're trying to sleep with everybody. But it's like, dude, projecting much? That's clearly your agenda. It sounds like the original poster just wants to make friends and that's it. So like seriously, why should you have to leave the group or apologize to her, especially if you didn't do anything? Like what's going on right now? If anyone's the pick-me girl in this story, it's the silver lady. So no, you're not the jerk and you didn't do anything wrong. And if your friends are truly taking her side, then in my opinion, these are not good friends to begin with. My new employer demands that I work half of minimum wage for the first few months of my employment, resulting in me not even showing up for work and other people I was supposed to start working with quitting their jobs the same day in protest. Here's what happened. 7 years ago, I needed cash for a new graphics card. I was just a teenager back then, and I'd worked with my aunt before, but her place was about 40 minutes away, so I decided to look for something local. Then I found a job posting just a couple blocks from my house that would be a night shift clerk at a convenience store. It paid a few bucks above minimum wage, so I applied, I got a text back, and I went in for an interview. And the interview went well until the very end. The manager said she wanted to be cleared because a lot of people had quit over pay misunderstandings. Then she hit me with this. For the first month, I'd be paid half of minimum wage. After that, I'd get minimum wage for another 2 months, and then I'd finally get the rate from the job listing. Now, I was stunned and taken back, but I played it cool and I acted like I was totally fine with it. She was so happy, going on about how young people these days don't want to work, but I was apparently different. And I thought to myself, oh yeah, I was different all right. A few days later, they told me I got the job. I was then added to the group chat with all the other clerks and the manager. They made a schedule to cover the 24-hour shifts, and then the manager sent a message saying that my first 4 hours wouldn't be paid because apparently it was just training. And at this point, I wasn't even mad anymore. I was just amazed at how malpractice this whole thing was. So when the day came along, I just didn't show up. 1 minute before my shift, I left the group chat and I blocked everybody. About 20 minutes later, I got a call from what I assume was the manager's husband asking if I was going to come in. I then told him something along the lines of, no, I'm not interested in working for half pay. Good luck though, you guys are gonna need it. Well, when I said that, she was livid, screaming on the phone, yelling about how people like me make her hate young people. I'm guessing someone had to cover my shift, unfortunately, but I guess that was the final straw, because later that day, I saw both the morning and graveyard shifts posted again on the same job site. And yeah, it was for the same business. So overall, I didn't even have to do anything big. I just dipped and didn't show up, and it made other people quit. But thankfully, I'm glad I exposed this manager who was refusing to pay fair and legal wages, because what she was doing was completely messed up. Yeah, I think I would go bananas if someone was like, oh yeah, the first 4 hours are unpaid, see you at work. It's like, no, it's not. It's absolutely not. And also, minimum wage is literally what it's called. It's the minimum legal wage that you can pay someone for work. You can't be like, oh, you're gonna get paid half that. And like, I'm pretty sure that's illegal, at least in the United States. Like, you can't pay someone less than that unless it's some weird extenuating circumstance. So good for you for not putting up with that crap, because trust me, there are much better jobs out there, and you do not need that kind of energy in your life. My entitled former employee decides that she wants a job no matter what, demanding that I fire one of my current workers, who, by the way, are doing fantastic, just so I can hire her back up again into my team. But what transpires after this conversation is honestly mind-blowing and completely surprising, as this lady shows once and for all why she is absolutely incredibly entitled. Here's what went down. Okay, so this situation went from 0 to 100 pretty quickly. For some backstory, I own a small business and our team are absolute rock stars. These are good people who could walk at any time and land another job in minutes. We survived the pandemic that must not be named on Reddit, with no layoffs, no reduction in pay except for me, and transitioned to a 100% work at home, which remains in place. The savings we enjoyed by not renewing our lease actually helped us a lot. We've worked together for a long time, with a least senior person being with us 7 years. Now, a friend of my wife, who we will call Stacy for the sake of the story, is a complainer. She's one of those people who are not happy unless they're not happy. But my ever-patient wife does her best to cheer her up. Last December, Stacy put in a vacation request for the week of Christmas, which by the way was a week before Christmas, when everybody else had already put in their request and was approved. Her request was denied, and she thought she would leverage the situation by quitting, only to then discover they processed her voluntary termination after she went home. It's now May and she's been out of work, and she, amongst other friends, were visiting last Sunday for one of my wife's wine and crafts nights among her friends. Making small talk in the kitchen, I asked her how the job search was going, and she said it was going poorly. Then she asked me for a job. Now, I didn't mind the ask. You miss 100%
100% of the shots that you don't take. However, we're not hiring right now, and I told her as much. She then said to me, "You know I'm a hard worker. Why don't you just fire someone and hire me?" Now, it took me a second to process this before I explained that our staff has been together for almost a decade, and I simply can't do that. To which she replied by saying, "You're the owner, you can do anything you want." And it's like, no, I'm a big fan of the book Leaders Eat Last, and a BS move like that would destroy the trust of my team. I then apologized and made a quick exit before the conversation could continue. Well, on Monday, I happened to be on the phone with another small business owner in town. For the sake of the story, we'll call him Bob, and Bob said he was down to a couple of people, and it was then that I remembered Stacy's request. I then told Bob what little I knew about her work life, and he said to have her call. So I told my wife, who passed it along to Stacy. Well, fast forward to today, and Bob calls me. He led off by saying, "How well do you know Stacy?" Now, I was a little nervous, not looking to vouch for her, but also not wanting to torpedo her opportunity, so I just gave the best non-answer that I could come up with. Well, Bob then burst into laughter, explaining that his interview with Stacy lasted less than 45 minutes because she kept trying to interview not for the job he had available, but for other positions that he already has filled. I then apologized and things are okay with Bob and I, but holy crap, this really did go south very quickly. Oh man, this is one of those situations where it's like, oh yeah, you're kind of glad this person's gone, and you're really glad they quit because they were clearly just problem after problem inside the office. So you know what, at least you tried to help her out, but seriously, it sounds like all the problems fall squarely on Stacy's shoulders, because she clearly wants the wrong kind of things and is unwilling to work hard to get what she wants. An entitled jerk is practically hitting me with their car as they're following me to my parking spot, as I guess they really wanted to take the spot before I left. But instead, I decided to give it to somebody else, putting this weird person in their place. Here's how I did it. Okay, so today I was leaving a parking lot that was maybe about 99% full. As I walk, I sense a car following me from pretty close, obviously sensing that it could take my spot. And this is a car I noticed entering the area moments before. But here's the thing, this shiny red car was literally humming right behind me, almost touching my legs. I know I have what the driver wants, my parking spot. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but my God, you're way too close. So I make a turn towards my lane, and my car is maybe 2/3 down the aisle, and I see right in front of me an older lady in a small beat-up car, like maybe a Nissan or something like that, and she obviously was inside the parking area before this shiny red car was following me. So I gently point to the lady and I say, "My spot is yours," but I'm not 100% certain that she saw me. Meanwhile, the shiny EV red car is still following me even closer, sensing a new opponent, I guess. Once inside my car, I gently pulled backwards with a curved path to block the shiny red car, and it quite literally had to back off for me to have enough space to leave my spot. I then motioned the older lady to take my spot, and she thanked me but said to me, "What about him?" And you know what? I just replied by saying, "You were here first, ma'am." She then entered the space with a huge smile, and I gently pulled away, looking in the mirror at the shiny red car behind me. So next time, if you want my parking spot, don't act so entitled and it might just be yours. Because as it is right now, that red car was definitely not going to take my spot. Okay, I can understand someone trying to get the parking spot and really snag it before anybody else, but to follow so closely that your bumper is brushing up against their legs, dude, what are you doing? That is dangerous. There's no excuse for that. I can't stand people who act like that, and honestly, I think you handled this really nicely. Because dude, I'm right there with you. If someone's gonna be weird like that, then congratulations, you're not getting my spot and I'm gonna give it to someone else. My friend was attacked by their boyfriend after he was convinced that she was cheating on him. So I decided to get even by quite literally canceling all of his classes for college and screwing up his schedule in such a way that made it nearly impossible for him to sign up for any other classes in a timely manner. Here's how it went down. So back in the before times when the internet was still a new thing with lots of potential, I was enrolled in my junior college. A little bit into the semester, I moved in with my girlfriend so we could both save on rent. I'll call my girlfriend Lucy for the purposes of this post. One night, Lucy says she invited a friend from one of her classes for a game night, and this sounded good to me. We invited a couple of other friends, and it was really a fun night. Surprisingly, it turned out that her friend, who we will call Sarah, was someone I knew from high school. We weren't close friends, but we knew each other and we got along fine. After that night, Sarah was invited over pretty frequently for dinner, game nights, or to watch a movie. She even brought her boyfriend over a couple of times, who we will call Jay, but he never quite fit in. He would be quiet or standoffish and wouldn't really engage much, and just seemed like he never really wanted to be there. It was clear no one really felt comfortable having him there, but we invited him to be polite to Sarah. Fortunately, he only came over 2 or 3 times and found an excuse to refuse every other time. A month or 2 after this all started, Sarah called my girlfriend crying and asked if she could come over. And of course, we said yes. Now, the story that was relayed was that Jay was getting very upset with Sarah for coming over to our place so frequently, and then he accused her of cheating on him. She never clarified if he thought that she was cheating with him, Lucy, or both, but any option was ridiculous and never happened. But he confronted her and got verbally aggressive with her, calling her all kinds of nasty names. At one point, she tried to walk past him to leave and he shoved her back. This caused her to trip over a coffee table, fall over, and get a huge bruise on her butt and lower back. Now, Sarah swore up and down that he had never physically touched her before, and she believed that it was just an accident, but I was pissed off. I wanted revenge. You don't mess with my friends and you don't attack women. I wanted to beat the crap out of him, but while I am a very big guy, I've never been in a fight and I'm not a violent person. But instead, a revenge plan was formed in my mind. At the time, I was working in the administration building of the school as a student employee. As part of my job, I could access anyone's student records. I could see their fees and I could see their schedule. The date was fast approaching that was the last day possible to drop or add classes without penalty or specific permission. So I looked Jay up in the system, I got his student ID number and the other information that I needed, and I put my plan into motion. On the last day to change schedules, I used the dedicated enrollment phones in the administration building, and I canceled all of his classes. Not only that, but I went through and added every class I could find that had a course fee. If you owed a debt at the school, you couldn't get copies of your transcripts or anything else. Now, something that I didn't mention was that Jay was a foreign student and couldn't stay in the country if he wasn't enrolled with a certain number of units. Now, I wish I could give more info about the fallout, but as I didn't want to get this traced back to me, I didn't tell anyone, nor did I pull up his records again for quite a while. I did get a little payoff though, because Sarah was really worried about seeing him again. For reference, she had broken up with him the night after he pushed her, and they had an English class together on Tuesdays. Well, she said that on Tuesday he was there, but there was also someone new standing in the class, and he was standing because there weren't enough seats. Now, the teacher, seeing that there were more people than there should be, decided to call roll and just take a wild guess as to who wasn't on it. That's right, it was Jay. Apparently, after I dropped all of his classes, someone on the waitlist got in. Jay tried to argue with the teacher, but as the teacher had the official class roster and Jay wasn't on it, there was nothing he could do about it. Sarah said that she never saw Jay in that class ever again. But after that, I don't know much more about what happened next. Lucy and I eventually broke up, so I didn't see Sarah very often after that. After a while, I did look up Jay's class schedule, and all of the classes with course fees were gone. But he didn't have any other classes on the books either. I wanted to assume that he was kicked out of the school, but I didn't try to confirm it one way or the other. Either way, Sarah didn't have a class with him, and while he probably deserved more, he was definitely inconvenienced and possibly kicked out of the school. Sometimes I worry if I was way too harsh, but then I remember that he absolutely deserved it, because at the end of the day, you are more than welcome to mess with me, but when it comes to my friends, you better believe there's gonna be backlash. Holy crap, this is some serious revenge. You literally screwed this guy's schedule up so much that he probably got kicked out of the school, especially if they're an international student. Like, holy crap, that's crazy, bro. So truly, good for you for being so dedicated to your friends, because this guy absolutely deserved to get punished. And while the way you went about doing it is something I would personally never do, I do love the effort and I love the fact that you definitely got even.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My job was a chaotic mess all the way up until I decided to sort it out, resulting in me throwing away about $1,000 worth of candy that literally was getting in the way and something that we never sold. And instead of getting fired, I ended up getting a raise, as they literally never knew that I threw away all this product. Here's how it went down. Okay, so back when I was in my early 20s, I worked at a grocery store that was owned by the chain Kroger. After working days for about 6 months, I was eventually moved to working the 11 to 7 or the 10 to 6 overnight shifts, and found that I really preferred them both for the clientele and for the different pace and not having to deal directly with the clueless general manager. One of the duties of the lone overnight checker was to restock all of the candy and snacks at the multiple checkout lanes. The candy was stored in the stairwell, giving the only access to the second floor office near the front of the store, which was an obvious fire hazard, by the way. Just picture this: 10 unopened cardboard boxes stacked along a not particularly wide stairwell, and you could imagine how messed up the whole thing was. Now, a lady who worked in the morning, who inventoried the candy remaining on the shelf, was a different person than the afternoon lady, whose job it was to occasionally, but almost never, inventory remaining candy in the stairwell. Then, daytime checkers were supposed to fill the lulls between customers by cleaning their check stations and by restocking candy by basically just grabbing whatever was handy at the bottom of the stairs, including opening up brand new packages, to take out the individual sales packages inside to top up their aisles displays, meaning that over time, those 10 large cardboard boxes of candy each had a bunch of partial boxes and loose pieces inside of just random candy with no organization. Because I worked as the overnight checker, I was constantly getting notes attached to my time card from the general manager, who only had his job because he he was golf buddies with the district manager and had never worked in a grocery store before 3 years before that, reminding me to sort out the mess by stocking the candy. One of the banes of my existence was the lady in the morning who was ordering a bunch of candy of cherry nibs. Apparently, it was part of a discount deal to buy a bunch of them, yet we barely sold any of them. There were unopened and partial boxes of them in every one of the larger boxes that held candy, as well as the crazy assortment of other candy. Finally, after about a dozen notes attached to my time card over the course of a month, I decided to act. One night, I pulled all the boxes down off the stairs and told the night manager that I was going to sort it all out for good, and he said that was totally fine. He was actually a cool guy who let me get work done and ran a very relaxed yet efficient shift. I then sorted all of the candy into chocolate, gum, suckers, basically by category, and all into about 6 labeled boxes. I then put all the stuff back in their proper boxes, and then put all the rest of the candy in a cart along with the trash, as that was part of my job to take out from the registers at night. I then proceeded to throw away what I can only estimate was maybe $1,000 or more worth of candy, including about 90% of those stupid cherry nibs. I tossed them into the trash compactor in the back of the store with all of the trash on top of it so that the next person who would use it wouldn't notice a bunch of crushed candy and report me. Well, the next night when I clocked in, I was pleasantly surprised to find that instead of being fired, there was a note on my time card letting me know that I did a good job and that I would be getting a 25-cent an hour raise on my next paycheck, which really is hilarious considering the fact that they had no idea that I destroyed a lot of their product. Okay, I love the fact that the original poster did this because seriously, it sounds like they were not managing this well. The person ordering the food was picking out stuff that they probably liked, but no other customer did. So good for you for getting it sorted out, because this sounds incredibly obnoxious and I would hate to deal with that. My store maliciously complied with corporate after they didn't send us the proper items we needed so that we could sell Mother's Day products, resulting in one of the most awkward situations I've ever been in my life. Here's what went down. Okay, so years ago, I worked for a medium-sized retailer which sold all sorts of things, from confectionery to garden supplies, and the store had half an aisle near the front of the store dedicated to events, which were pretty much right in the customers' faces as they entered the store. Every few weeks, these event shelves would change over to a new department or be themed to any upcoming holidays or special days, such as Mother's Day or Halloween or stuff like that. Usually for these events, we would get the stock delivered the week before and spend that week taking out the old stock and replacing it with the new lines. If a new line was missing from the delivery, we would go and find a different line that would fit into that event from somewhere else in the store. One day in early April, we received an email from upper management. They said the following: "Do not replace missing event lines with any other lines." We emailed back to clarify because, of course, nearly every event delivery is missing at least one line. Do they want us to spread our other items out to fill the empty space or what? They said to us, just leave the space for any missing lines empty. Apparently, it will look like they have sold out. Barely a month later, while preparing for the Mother's Day event, we receive our regular delivery with no Mother's Day event lines. Not a single one. So we email upper management to let them know that we haven't received any of the event lines. They respond by saying that it will come in our next delivery and that we still should not fill any empty space. Well, needless to say, they did not arrive on the next delivery day either. We emailed them again informing them that we still had not received any event lines and heard nothing back. So we decided to do exactly what they asked. We cleared out the old event lines and left the entire event section completely empty for the entire 3-week period leading up until Mother's Day. After Mother's Day, during a conference call, they asked us why we had 0 sales for the event lines and why our sales for the period had dropped significantly. But we just referred them back to the other previous emails where we told them that we never received the delivery, and they said not to fill the missing lines. And this is when the most deliciously sweet awkward silence began. After the call, one more email was sent out to everybody. Please use your best judgment when filling missing lines for events. And honestly, that was so satisfying because their policies to begin with were incredibly stupid. Yeah, that last line is literally them admitting that they're stupid and they don't know what they're doing. They didn't want to admit it because obviously they don't want to look like they did anything wrong, but it's also pretty obvious that they're the ones at fault. So good for you for putting them in their place, because these people are complete morons. An entitled Karen freaks out on me after I refused to open up her burgers that she ordered just to see which one was which, as she had 2 different bags and didn't want to check it herself, resulting in one of the stupidest blow-ups I've ever seen in my life, as well as me literally being done with this job. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at Burger King and today's Whopper Wednesday. And by the way, I'm typing this out while I'm on break. I'm handling drive-thru orders and things have been extremely busy today, and customers are coming and going without issue until a couple of minutes ago. This older woman, and who I'm assuming was her daughter or granddaughter, was in the drive-thru and had asked for her 2 combos in separate bags. And this is no issue. I separate the combos and I charge her order. After giving her change and
holding the two bags in front of her. This woman then asked me which burger was which. I told her I didn't know, but that the cook had marked the wrappers for her to differentiate. She then tells me, very rudely by the way, that it's my responsibility to know which burgers were where, and to take the burgers out and open them to check. Now I'm dumbfounded with this request, and I tell her that I can't open the burgers because I have no gloves, and I had just handed her money. She then gets mad and tells me to just check the burgers already, but I repeated that I had no gloves and that she could check herself since my hands had just touched money. She then gets even more mad and demands a refund. So my manager comes in and the Karen berates me to her, saying how I didn't do what she had asked me to do, and how apparently I was the one with the attitude. But again, I had no gloves, and I had just touched money, and I refused to touch food with no gloves, with what germs are on my hands. After getting her refund, my boss tells me next time to just do what the customer asked. And it's like, seriously, we were in the middle of a huge rush. I'm not going to the back where the gloves were at just to check this lady's order, because I have way more customers who actually want to be there for the right reasons, and I'm not going to hold everybody up all because of this stupid entitled Karen. Yeah, that kind of behavior is really disgusting. First of all, anyone who's ever dealt with money or worked in a bank knows how disgusting money is. I did work at a bank at one point in my life, and oh my gosh, it is really gross. Like, I wouldn't want to do anything else except for wash my hands at the end of the day. You're just handling and touching money, and money is so gross, dude. So in my opinion, I think the original poster did the right thing, especially when it comes to a customer's food, because who knows the kind of accusations this lady could have like thrown against you. And that, in my opinion, sounds like a bigger headache of her trying to be like, oh yeah, you poisoned my food, than just giving her a refund and getting her out the door. This next story comes from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. If you'd like to submit your own stories, check out the link in the description. Let's get started. Am I the jerk for starting my mini bike in my driveway, as well as taking it for a spin after my Karen neighbor blew up on me and physically attacked me? Because right now I'm wondering if I made a mistake or if I'm in the right. Here's how it went down. Okay, to start things out, I've been fixing up this mini bike for a while. It's just a basic pit bike and it needed a lot of work. I'm talking carb cleaning, rewiring the kill switch, adjusting the brakes, the chain lube, the works. It's been my little weekend project and honestly, something I'm really proud of. But last Saturday, I finally had it ready to go. The weather was nice, my tools were laid out, and my music was playing low on my Bluetooth speaker. I wheeled the mini bike out in the driveway, made sure everything was tight, and I gave the pull start a few solid yanks. And just like that, it came to life like a beast. It was loud, sure, but it was running perfectly, and I was super pumped. I let it idle for a minute while I checked the throttle response, made some adjustments, and then let out a satisfied breath. Well, that is until this entitled Karen enters the story. From across the street, I hear that high-pitched, furious tone that just radiates entitlement.
Turn that thing off right now.
I turn around and there she is, storming across her lawn in sandals and rage. She's got that classic bob haircut, sunglasses on even though it's cloudy outside, and she's waving her phone around like she's already mid-call with the cops. I try to de-escalate by saying, hey, I'm sorry, it's just for a minute, I've just got to get it running. She then snaps at me and says,
This is a family neighborhood. You're disturbing my baby and my dog. You can't run that thing here.
I then respond super calm, I'm not riding it, I'm just making sure it runs, I'll be done soon. But apparently that wasn't enough. She stomps into my driveway, gets in my face, and then starts yelling at me.
You little punks think you can do whatever you want. I should call the police. This is illegal.
And then out of nowhere, she shoves me in the chest, like full on hand to chest. I stumble back stunned because honestly, who does that? I then held up my hands and I said, back off, don't touch me. But she steps up like she's about to do it again. So I give her one solid push, just enough to put some distance between us. Not violent, but instead just defensive. She then loses it and screams, you attacked me, you put your hands on me, and starts dialing her cell phone as if she's like reporting someone passing away. But then the hero moment steps in as my neighbor Mike across the street comes walking over. He says to the Karen, look, I saw the whole thing. He didn't touch you until you shoved him first, so you need to leave before this gets worse. Well, when he comes over, she looks like she just got caught stealing from a bake sale. Furious, red-faced, and flustered, she turns and storms off, still yelling about how she's calling the HOA, the police, and probably the FBI too. At this point, my adrenaline is pumping and I'm fired up. So what do? I look down to my idling mini bike, I throw my leg over it, twist the throttle, and I take off right off the driveway and around the block. I did a full loop at a casual pace. My helmet was on, my hoodie was flapping, and the engine was humming like a little chainsaw. I wasn't being reckless. I wasn't speeding or tearing up lawns. I was just sending a message. Neighbors looked out their windows and a few even smiled and waved. By the time I came back around, Karen was standing at the end of her driveway, arms crossed like she was expecting me to crash and beg for forgiveness. But you know what? I didn't say a word. I rolled right back into my driveway, I killed the engine, and I wheeled it over to the back of my 2002 Tahoe. I dropped the tailgate, I loaded it in, and I shut the door with the cleanest I win energy of my life. Later that day, her husband came over super apologetic. He said that she gets carried away sometimes and asked if we could just let it go, and I told him, look, as long as she keeps her hands to herself, we are good. So on that note, I really need to know, am I the jerk for starting my mini bike in my driveway and then riding it around the block after this Karen physically attacked me and tried to call the cops on me? Because at this point, I seriously have no regrets. Oh man, I can't believe this lady did that to you. First of all, it's really good that your neighbor across the street was watching over you, because you know for a fact that lady would have absolutely thrown you under the bus at the first opportunity. Because you know what? You had every right to defend yourself. This lady attacked you and pushed you. Like, who does that? That's not okay. You can't do that. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because what you did, in my opinion, was incredibly funny. And this was the type of karma that this entitled Karen absolutely deserved. An entitled boomer mocked the fact that I was lactose intolerant and intentionally put milk in my coffee that I ordered, resulting in one of the most uncomfortable nights of my life. Here's how it went down. Okay, so I was at a restaurant with my family tonight in South Florida for my mom's birthday dinner. I ordered a mocha with oat milk, but the boomer server in his 60s barely spoke English and muttered to himself, "Stupid vegan," in Spanish when I tried to make my order. My dad, a native Spanish speaker, corrected him in Spanish and said that I'm lactose intolerant and that I'll get sick if I drink milk. Well, he just scoffed but said that he would put the order in. Immediately after dinner, I started getting a stomachache. By the time I got home, I had what can only be described as explosive diarrhea. And as I write this, I'm still suffering from extreme stomach cramps. Also, the restaurant advertises itself as an American restaurant. It's not Cuban or anything like that, and I just wanted to point that out. My dad ended up calling the restaurant in Spanish as no one there spoke English, and he got the server on the phone. He told my dad that vegan commies like myself are ruining Miami, and went on a weird tangent about how he escaped the Cuban Revolution, which really makes the whole not knowing English thing worse, given that if he escaped the revolution, he's been in America for over 50 years. Also, I'm not even vegan. My body literally just can't digest dairy. We ended up getting a manager on call that spoke English, and he said that he would talk to the boomer server. And there's honestly so many layers of issues here that it is completely crazy. That boomer should be in a nursing home, not working, and this restaurant shouldn't be hiring people that can't communicate with their customer base. It's truly one of the weirdest situations I've ever been in, and I honestly don't think I'm ever going back anytime soon. Okay, as someone who is lactose intolerant, this is really messed up. Because yeah, it can happen this violently and this fast if you're not careful. So the fact that this idiot was like, oh, you're just one of those stupid commies, one of these vegan people, you're ruining Miami. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? I just can't drink milk. Like, why would you do that to me? Because what this guy did is literally just unacceptable, and you should not have had to deal with that. Am I the jerk for demanding that my unemployed roommate pay me back for the rent I paid after she bought a brand new MacBook? Because right now, I'm not sure if I'm the jerk, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my roommate and I have been living together for 2 years now. We split the rent 50-50, even though my room is slightly larger, but I cook more, so it evens out. She lost her job last month and asked if I could pay her share of the rent until she gets a new job. Well, I said yes since we are friends and times are really hard. Fast forward to yesterday, and I come home from work and I see her unpacking a brand new MacBook and some other clothing that she had bought. And for reference, this MacBook cost over $2,000. I asked her where she got the money to buy this when she didn't even have a job, and she became defensive and told me her parents sent her money for her birthday. I then informed her that if she can afford luxury products, she should repay me the rent that I paid immediately. She then claimed the money from her parents is a gift exclusively for those products and that I volunteered without any conditions. I reminded her that I am not rich either, and I missed a weekend getaway with my friends in order to pay her rent. She then began crying and told me that I'm being materialistic and that I just simply do not understand her problem. I then discovered this morning that I received half the rent money in an envelope with a message stating that she'd pay the other half when she can, but she won't speak to me much anymore. I don't feel like I'm being unfair in demanding my money when she's spending money on non-necessities, but maybe I did take it a little bit too far, because it makes me wonder if I'm the jerk in this situation. No, I'd be pretty pissed off if I paid all the rent and then suddenly my roommate's like, oh, I got a brand new MacBook. Like, dude, no way. I'm sorry. That's not gonna be okay with me. So no, you're not the jerk, because I think I would feel the exact same way if I was in your shoes. Thanks for watching. Subscribe down below if you haven't already. And also, please subscribe to Am I the Genius? I think you're gonna love what they're making over there. It's a great channel and you should definitely check it out. Everything will be linked down below in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.